June 6, 2018, morning session of the Portland City Council. Carla, could you please call the roll?
Fish.
Here.
Saltzman. Udaly.
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here. Good morning, Robert.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome to the Portland City Council. The City Council represents all Portlanders and meets to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings, so everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, a yellow light goes on. When your time is done, a red light goes on. If you are in the audience and would like to show your support for something that is said, please feel free to do a thumbs up. If you want to express that you do not support something, please feel free to do a thumbs down. Disruptive conduct such as shouting or interrupting testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being ejected for the remainder of the meeting. After being ejected, a person who fails to leave the meeting is subject to arrest for trespass. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe.
Very good, thank you. We have communications first, and it's my understanding, Carla, that all 5 of the communications are related, and so why don't we go ahead and call them all together. And colleagues, we've received a packet of information pertinent to the communications this morning as well. Thank you.
577, request of Tabitha Ponciano to address council regarding supporting human rights in the Philippines. 578, request of Dante Haruna to address council regarding supporting human rights in the Philippines. 579, request of Melissa Munoz to address council regarding supporting human rights in the Philippines. 580, request of Nikki De Leon to address council regarding supporting human rights in the Philippines. And 581, request of Dr. Alma Trinidad to address council regarding supporting human rights in the Philippines.
Good morning. Welcome to Portland City Council.
Good morning.
3 minutes each. Name for the record, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tabitha Ponciano. I'm with the Portland Committee for Human Rights in the Philippines, a member organization of the International Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines. Last month, from May 1st to May 5th, Portland welcomed peace advocates from the Philippines who came to talk about the onslaught of human rights abuses the Filipino people have experienced under the Duterte regime, specifically the 20,000 plus killings since July 2016. For the Stop the Killings speaking tour. We were expecting 3 speakers for this portion of the nationwide tour, but instead, only 2 were able to make it. I'm here to talk today about Jerome Socorro Aba, an indigenous Muslim rights activist from the Philippines, who was invited by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, the General Board of Global Ministries of the United Methodist Church, to speak on the movement for peace in the Philippines at the Ecumenical Advocacy Days, one of the largest gatherings of faith-based groups in the U.S. For this, Jerome was given a 10-year multiple entry visa to the U.S. On April 18th, however, Jerome was instead detained, interrogated, and tortured mentally and physically by the Customs and Border Protections at San Francisco International Airport for over 28 hours, incommunicado with folks on the ground. After being deported by the U.S. CBP, Jerome recounted the harrowing account of his detention. He was repeatedly told that he didn't have rights, that he was not allowed to speak to his lawyer who was waiting right outside CBP's office. He was even given pork to eat, even though he explicitly said that it goes against his religion. He was stripped naked and left to stand in a cold room with an industrial fan, making the room even colder. He was coerced to sign blank documents. He was accused of being a communist, of being a terrorist. He was left in a room with a grenade and a gun on several occasions to taunt and scare him. CBP has released statements denying all of this abuse, but Jerome has stood steadfast in his testimony. Jerome said, since arriving back in the Philippines, he has been confronting the trauma, the sleeplessness, nightmares, and anxieties as he relives the forms of torture they have inflicted on his person. As Jerome came to speak about the human rights abuses in the Philippines, he became a victim of one on U.S. soil. The International Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines, U.S., coordinated the nationwide Stop the Killings caravan tour. And the next speaker, Dante Haruna, will be talking more about the work that ICHRP is doing in solidarity with the Filipino people. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. And I forgot to mention about 6 inches to the microphone is about right. Okay. Great. Thank you. That's good.
So hello, my name is Dante Haruna. I'm a resident of Portland, and I speak today on behalf of ICHRP Pacific Northwest. It's the regional chapter of ICHRP US. I'm here in solidarity with the 4 other speakers representing local and national ICHRP US member organizations, including Portland Committee for Human Rights in the Philippines, Anak Bayan Portland, and the National Association for Filipino Concerns. We are people of faith. We're immigrants, workers, professionals, students, teachers, and peace and justice-loving people of the city of Portland. In the spirit of Portland's leadership as a sanctuary city, we are here to call on Portland City Council to pass a resolution in support of our 3 calls: justice for Jerome Aba, justice for migrants, refugees and international travelers, and justice for the Filipino people. ICHRP, the International Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines, is a global network of organizations outside of the Philippines that's concerned about the human rights situation in the Philippines. And they're committed to a campaign for just and lasting peace. The Philippines is experiencing a human rights crisis under the current Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte and his own self-proclaimed war on drugs and war on terror. More than 20,000 people have been reportedly killed. Most of these people are poor, youth, indigenous people, farmers, and human rights activists. ICHRP US is in solidarity with the Filipino people and their calls to end these wars on the people and to end US funding of the armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police. The city of Portland is key to our human rights work. So on December 9th, 2017, across the river in Vancouver, Washington, Portland-based Filipino and ally organizations launched the U.S. chapter of ICHRP in response to the urgent call of the Filipino people. ICHRP US was founded to bring attention to the fact that U.S. tax dollars are going towards funding these human rights violations. In light of the city of San Francisco's recent condemnation of the human rights violations and their own proclamation, we ask the city of Portland to do the same. And we would just like to offer our deepest gratitude to U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley, who at the launching of ICHRP US in December offered his letter of support stating, promoting human rights and calls for peace have a place here in Oregon as well as abroad. And so we just want to thank Jeff Merkley for that. We'd also like to thank the Portland chapter of the National Lawyers Guild for their continued support of our efforts. NLG Portland recognizes that a resolution from the city of Portland will aid ICHRP in our efforts to raise awareness of these issues in the United States and abroad. The Portland chapter of NLG therefore urges Portland City Council to grant our request. We're also grateful for the City of Seattle's own council for their recent support of a similar proclamation, and we'd also like to extend our thanks to a recent letter of support offered by 23 Portland area faith-based leaders. I recently visited the Philippines on my own human rights mission, and I got to witness the gross violations, and I cannot more deeply express the urgency of taking up these calls. Justice for Jerome, justice for all migrants, refugees, and international travelers, and justice for the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good morning.
Hello?
A little bit further away.
About,
Further?
there's sensitive microphones, and they
Oh,
can adjust
okay.
the volume.
Is
It's about
this-
6 inches is
okay.
right. Thanks.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
Sorry. Hello, my name is Melissa Munoz, and I am representing Onekpa in Portland, as well as the Stop the Killings in the Philippines caravan. So Claudia Patricia Gomez Gonzalez was an indigenous Mayan Guatemalan woman who was just 20 years old when she was shot in the head by Customs and Border Patrol by the U.S.-Mexico border. Claudia was migrating to the U.S. in pursuits of continuing her education and providing for her family back in Guatemala. My family is Guatemalan, as well, and my mom was the one who told me about Claudia when she heard about this tragic news. She told me how it reminded her of herself and when she crossed the U.S.-Mexico border, and how dangerous it is, and how you have to risk your life, and how you risk your life doing so. I am lucky and grateful to say that my mom made it to the U.S. alive. Sadly, this is not the first time a U.S.-funded government agency has done something like this to our fellow migrants and residents here in America. The resolution we are asking you to move forward with today is one that acknowledges the rights, hard work, respect, and safety that all refugees, migrants, and international travelers deserve. While we understand the city doesn't have direct jurisdiction over customs and border protections, we know you have a powerful voice. We're asking today that you'll use your voice to speak on behalf of our cause, this resolution, and maintain Portland's sanctuary city status despite federal pressure for defunding sanctuary cities. We ask that you oppose abuses from Customs and Border Protection on human rights at borders and at international airports. Justice for all migrants, refugees, and international travelers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate your being here. Good morning.
Good morning. 6 inches. My name is Nikki. Today I'm representing NAFCON. NAFCON stands for the National Alliance for Filipino Concerns. It's a national multi-issue alliance of Filipino organizations and individuals in the United States, serving to protect the rights and welfare of Filipinos by fighting for social, economic, and racial justice and equality. At present, NAFCON is present in 23 cities, and Portland is one of them. I think just for background, I was born and raised in the Philippines, and if you didn't know, the Philippines is considered a third world country, but the land is rich in resources that many Filipinos cannot even afford to use. If you ever end up in the Philippines, if you ever visit it, you'll see it will be very easy to observe that there is the influence of the United States in the Philippines. You could see it in the systems of government, in the media, and how it is delivered to the Filipino people. It's delivered in English. You could observe it in the education system where our lectures are primarily delivered in English. And we would have one lesson in Tagalog, which is our native language. So already what I want to bring up here is that there exists influence of the United States in the Philippines, and it affects the everyday lives of Filipinos. In the education system, what we can see is the conditioning of Filipinos to be migrants for export, where our labor power is delivered to countries all over the world, and the United States is one of them. And the connection that I want to make today is that these people are called OFWs. They're called Overseas Filipino Workers. And the connection here is that in Portland, these overseas Filipino workers exist here. My family is included there. Over 23,000 Filipinos reside in Portland. In the instance of Jerome Aba, who is my friend from the Philippines who was tortured, what I want to recognize here is that there is an unevenness in the application of Customs and Border Patrol to migrants, even with papers and documents, where we are free and invited to be here to work for the United States, to be of labor power in the care homes and take care of people here. But if we were to be peace advocates and call out the influence of the United States in the Philippines and how it's affecting the land there, then we could potentially be tortured upon entering the United States. And this is not something, and we're very concerned about if 23,000 Filipinos go back and forth from Portland to the Philippines. Even in the port where the seafarers are. We don't want that same torture to be applied to us.
Thank you. Appreciate your being here. Good morning.
Aloha kako, kumusta kayo amen, sabaidi, good morning, esteemed commissioners. I greeted you in languages of my ancestors. Hawaiian, a place where I was born and raised, Ilocano, a Filipino dialect of my immigrant culture, and Lao, a language of my partner and my husband. I am from a family of immigrant and refugee roots, and I am no different than Jerome Abba, who was our peace advocate. I'm also pleased to be speaking in front of you. Some of you I've seen in multiple spaces, and you've shown strong support for our communities of color here in Portland, particularly our refugee, migrant, and immigrant populations. I am Dr. Alma Trinidad, a social work professor at Portland State University, and I sit on several boards of directors that support Asian Pacific Islanders. But here today, I'm here to speak as a member of large of the National Committee on the International Coalition of Human Rights U.S. chapter. You have heard from many of our speakers this morning, many of which are young adults and emerging professionals in the city who have very deep concerns around our human rights and justice for our communities, locally and globally. And I want to speak to you from a scholar and a professor who teach across different academic programs, as well as doing community-based research here in Portland. And I want to leave with you with three main messages that I hope that you will remember. And a lot of this comes from messages from my work around trauma, around educating the emerging helping profession. The first message, as commissioners, you are our elected government representatives with major roles and responsibilities of power and influence, and hopefully peace-centric ethics. We humbly urge you to take a stand with us against violence and inhumane treatment of our people. Local government and its sanctuary policies and policies around immigration and custom and borders can make a difference in making things right and just for our communities, and we humbly seek your partnership. Message number 2. A lack of support has dire implications on how our city impacts the livelihood of our communities and our people. Our communities of refugees, migrant, and immigrant population, we seek to live in a place where we feel welcomed, have a sense of belonging, and a community where there's love, support, and uniqueness. Our third message, violations to human rights is a violation to human lives, and we want to put a stop to tax dollars put to US-supported militarization, economic gains, or any form of aids that justify human rights violation here in this city as well as globally. Money speaks volumes, and money that put into inhumane treatment of custom and border, money put into advisory groups, technical support, and equipments, including our intelligence and surveillance drones, explicitly means investing in violence. Simultaneously, when we, as fellow citizens of our global community, ignore the cries of the most vulnerable of our communities, we don't meet the needs of how trauma can be impacted. Trauma that's impacted by militarization, war, conflict, and forced displacement of the homeland. So hence, I guess I want to plead with you, and I want to end, that I hope we can lean towards you and gain your support and partnership in doing this type of work of human rights through education, through advocacy, and through conscious building. Resistance is our right. Resistance against violence is of all forms. Solidarity is our duty, solidarity for peace. So thank you, salamat, mahalo.
Thank you. We appreciate all of you being here. I had a question. Have you had and first of all, let me just go on the record and say that President Duarte is not, in my opinion, a credible leader that should be supported by the United States. His ongoing violence towards his own people, his engagement as a formal policy through the use of extrajudicial killing. And there have been some estimates that he has now killed as many as 20,000 of his own citizens through extrajudicial killing. And that should obviously not be something that we would support. My question is this: have you had a chance to work through or introduce this concept to our Human Rights Commission? We have a group of very engaged and active citizens in our community that help advise this council on issues such as these, and I'm wondering if you've had a chance yet to have those conversations.
Not yet, but we plan to engage with other groups and other forms of government here in the city and the state.
Good, and I would just encourage that by way of, I want to respect them as the group of citizens that we have enlisted for this purpose, and I want to make sure that they're engaged. I would expect that they would have a very open mind to what it is you're discussing, and I think you're raising an entirely legitimate and an important issue, and I want to thank you for bringing it here to the Portland City Council. Commissioner Fritz.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't know a lot of this information, so thank you very much. Particularly when I saw what the title of your speeches, I assumed it was going to be all about the Philippines, and to hear that things are happening, such as happened to Jerome, is really concerning. As the Mayor said, the Human Rights Commission are the group who kind of pass for us which things we should pay the most attention to. So if you could please make a presentation from them and get a recommendation from them, then it seems like a resolution similar to the one in San Francisco. I will say also that seeing Senator Merkley's letter was also very persuasive to me, so I'm glad that he's also supporting. Thank you.
We're also happy to help you make that connection. We can connect you to the right people. Commissioner Daly, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for being here today. And I inquired yesterday about the Human Rights Commission as well, and I do think that's the next logical step. And I just wanted to acknowledge the supplemental materials you provided, which is the letter from Senator Merkley, a letter from ICHRP, which unfortunately I can't. Do you know the full name of that organization?
National Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines.
Okay. With numerous community leaders who have signed on, a letter from the National Lawyers Guild, and the resolution from the City of San Francisco, which is really helpful for us. So I'm certainly supportive of your request, and let's make sure action is taken soon. Thank you.
Can I add just one comment? First of all, superb presentation. Every summer I get a chance to go to a Philippine American picnic at Blue Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's hosted by a number of groups, including the Philippine American Chamber of Commerce. So that's Jamie Lim, Asian Reporter, and others. And so as you are building your coalition, I think it's very powerful to include them as partners. They may already be partners of what you're trying to do, but I would encourage you to add them to your list. So thank you.
Very good. This was very informative and important. We appreciate your being here today. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Can you tell me, Carla, which items have been pulled so far? I have 585 and 589. Were there others?
That's all I have.
Very good. Please call the roll.
Fish,
Aye.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. Consent agenda is adopted. Next item is first time certain, item 582.
Proclaim June 4 through 10 to be Timbers, Thorns FC, and T2 Stand Together Week.
Commissioner Fish.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to invite up Timber Joey, Jordan Farwell, and I think Caitlin is here. And Caitlin, I apologize, I don't know your last name.
Okay, Jones.
Caitlin Jones. Okay. We're very glad you're here. I believe Jack Jewsbury could not join us.
Yeah, he couldn't make it.
So
We
if you
also
need-
have Kristen Kenyali.
Oh, good. Well, the more the merrier. Please come up.
Yeah.
Why don't you all take a seat next to a mic? Mayor, I have to tell you that Timber Joey was briefly detained downstairs because apparently he tried to bring a chainsaw in with him and didn't read the fine print at the front door. But we're so pleased to have you here with us today. This is the 7th time that the council has had a chance to celebrate what's now an institution in our community, the Timbers Stand Together Week. It's a week of service. This year, the Timbers, the Thorns, and T2 will support organizations ranging from the Oregon Food Bank to Solve, to ERCO, to Zenger Farm, and many others. We're so grateful that the Timbers family is organizing these events, and for starstruck people like me, that they get a twofer out of participating, because you often get to work side by side with a player, and that's pretty exciting too. The mayor is going to sort of commemorate this day by issuing a proclamation, which is a very big deal. But before he does so, we wanted to ask Timber Joey and any of our invited guests if they want to say a few words, and then the mayor will issue his proclamation, and then we'll ask for a photograph. Timber?
Yeah, well, we just want to thank Mayor Ted Wheeler and city commissioners for this proclamation. It does mean so much to us, and we're really excited to embark on our 7th year with the city. And just want to extend an invitation. There are still some open spots for projects, so if you go on the Hands-On website or the Stand Together website, you can find available projects to come out and join us.
That's terrific. And so you beat Commissioner Fritz to the question, because she often asks, where can you find it on the website? Tell us again, what's the website address?
Yeah, so the Hands-On Portland website has the signups, or you can kind of link from the Timbers website under the Stand Together drop-down.
And when does this officially start?
June 9th. Saturday.
That's great. Timber, you want to say a few words?
Yeah, is this close enough? 6 inches?
Perfect.
So it's very exciting. I actually don't even know when Stand Together Week starts and when it ends, because I'm one of the people that gets to go out and do these projects all the time. So it's very exciting. So it's actually a day in the life of me is what you get to do when you come out. You get to stand next to a player, and I know that I am standing next to Andy Tulomas, is that? Tuloma, for one of my first events on Saturday. And I believe Sam, remind me the last name again, Arbenteros is going to be at one of my events. I know Jack Jewsbury will be there, Nat Borchers, so not only historical Timbers players, but also the guys that are the up-and-comers that are going to be superstars. And then we can turn it a little bit to the Thorns, too. I believe Tobin Heath signed up for some of these events. Wow. The world's greatest player. Christine Sinclair will probably be out. And then we have some young up-and-coming Thorns as well. So it's very exciting, a chance for everybody to get out, do good in the community, but also get to rub elbows with some of their heroes.
I have to ask you guys, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you find Mike Golub as hard to work with as we find him?
No, he's amazing, and he's a champion of our philanthropy and of Stand Together Week. So we're grateful for his support.
I'm a little surprised he's not sitting up there somewhere yet.
Yeah, we are too.
There's an open seat.
Before the mayor reads the proclamation, Joey, I wanted to ask you something. Let's say sometime this summer, there is a game that we win 14-0. So you've spent the entire evening slicing wood.
Sure.
Now, when you do it, who gets these souvenirs? Who do they go to?
So all of the log slices go to the player who scored the goal or the keeper who got the shutout. Now, what they do with that is their own decision.
They get all of them.
They get, whichever player gets each slice, yeah. So most of the players will donate them back to our Stand Together projects, and you can find them online at our online auctions or at our Stand Together banquet, where they'll be signed and dated what goal it was.
So you're saying that we might be able to go online and bid on one of the slices of wood signed by the team?
The actual piece that was cut for the specific goal for the specific player.
Because, I was selfishly thinking at some point at City Hall, we'd love to have a display, of something like that, but it's all for a good cause, so I see what you're saying. You're making it very clear we have to pay for it, which is appropriate.
We do a lot of great things in the community, and all you'd be doing is supporting this community.
Absolutely. So. Mayor?
Very good. So Commissioner Fritz, please.
Thank you. And you're also welcome to borrow my scarf, just like the mayor is. Thank you. Did they bring one for you, Commissioner? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I just want to say thank you very much for all you do. I was at an event with at David Douglas High School with Timber Joey and Midge Purse and Ife Onamonu, who at the time had not yet played, so I didn't know how to say her name, and now I've heard it many times, and she's fantastic.
And I don't know if you know, but Midge was just called up for the U.S. Women's National Team.
I'm on it. So yes, but they came from the Boston Breakers, and I asked them, did you do things like this, go to high schools and get, rapturous fans in Boston? And they both laughed uproariously and said no. And I have been watching football since I was about 5 years old, and in Europe and here now, thank you. And there's nothing like this anywhere in the world, where supporters not only do kind things every single match, like making collections for various good causes, they also, all through the year, it's not just Stand Together Week, like you said, there's good stuff going on the whole time. So thanks to Timbers Army and to the Rose City Riveters, as well as to the Thorns organisation, it's a great partnership, and it makes me very, very proud to have this organisation as part of our Soccer City USA.
Very good. Well, thank you, Commissioner Fritz, for lending me this as well. It's in the spirit of the day, and I'm sorry I didn't think to bring my own. So thank you for being here. It is my honor, on behalf of the City Council, to read a proclamation. Proclamations are a statement of our values as a council and an opportunity to celebrate as a community. So we appreciate your being here for this. Whereas the City of Portland is proud to be home to the Portland Timbers, Portland Thorns FC, and Timbers 2 professional soccer teams. And whereas the Timbers, Thorns, and T2 are committed to giving back to our community and promoting civic engagement through their community platform, Stand Together, and whereas the City of Portland is proud to partner with the Timbers, Thorns, and T2 in organizing the 7th annual Stand Together Week, a week of community service. Whereas approximately 1,000 volunteers, including the Timbers Army, Rose City Riveters, players, coaches, team ambassadors, front office staff, sponsors, and community members will participate in Stand Together Week. Whereas Stand Together volunteers will host 30 community events and projects throughout Portland, including building homes, restoring local parks, pulling ivy, creating healing gardens, cleaning children's books, leading soccer clinics, and more. And whereas Stand Together will support local, mission-driven nonprofits, including Active Children Portland, Children's Book Bank, Playworks, Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization, Virginia Garcia Memorial Health Center, Zanger Farm, Solve, and the Oregon Food Bank, among others. And whereas Stand Together Week is a call to action by the city, the Portland Timbers, Portland Thorns FC, and Timbers 2 and our community partners to inspire people to give back through community service. Now, therefore, I, Ted Wheeler, Mayor of the City of Portland, Oregon, the City of Roses, do hereby proclaim June 9th through June 15th, 2018 to be Timbers, Thorns FC, and T2 Stand Together Week in Portland. Encourage all residents to observe and participate in this week. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Fritz, you already know this, but I just looked it up on my phone. The 3 players called up to the national team, our team, because I think there are other players called up to other national teams, are Tobin Heath, Lindsey Horan, and Midge Purse. And it doesn't say specifically, but Midge Purse may be one of the first Ivy League players to ever make the team. I mean, she was a Harvard All-American and a finalist for the best player in the game from an Ivy League school, which, frankly, we're so accustomed to hearing about North Carolina, UC, West Coast teams, other things. It's pretty extraordinary.
We have 2 Ivy Leagues.
University of Portland.
Well, of course, University of Portland, but I'm being magnanimous. And really an extraordinary record, but from an Ivy League school, and who would have thunk it? So,
Yeah, she's
Photo?
incredible.
yeah.
Photo op up here. Thanks.
Thank you.
right here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Commissioner, can you?
Betsy is so good at this. She's not our official photographer, by the way.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Amazing. And then.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
Good.
We're good.
All right. Thank you so much. You did a great job. It's good seeing you. Thank you so much. You got that. Nice to meet you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Nice meeting you too.
Commissioner, thank you. Absolutely. Good to see you.
So Commissioner Fritz, this or this?
In Europe, it'd be around your wrist. That's all right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're all my witnesses. I'm handing it back.
That's right.
gave mine to Mustafa.
That's a really good
Yeah.
one. That's a great one. All right. That was fun. Next item, please. 583.
Accept a $188,000 award from Metro Nature in Neighborhoods Capital Grants Program for improvements at Leach Botanical Garden.
Oh, this sounds good too. Commissioner Fritz.
Yeah, the good just keeps going. Thank you, Mayor. Let me ask our guests to come forward. Thank you. This action will accept a grant from Metro to help support the improvements at Leach Botanical Gardens. And it's just another great partnership with Metro, and we're very grateful to have Metro Councillor Shirley Craddock here with us today. Just on Saturday, we celebrated another partnership with Metro in the opening of the Whittaker Ponds gateway improvements. And so there's just all kinds of good things happening in partnership with Metro. The Friends of Leach Botanical Gardens have played an absolutely fantastic role in this. And with the System Development Charge investment from Parks, the Leach Botanical Garden campaign, the grant from Metro, and I believe some Prosper Portland money, we have a total added revenue of $8.9 million. And actually, that's added because the Prosper Portland money was before this. So this is going to be a multi-million-dollar improvement in East Portland, and I could not be happier. Thank you to all of those who have helped support the work for Leach Botanical Gardens. And now turn it over to Ross Swanson, the Capital Project Manager for Parks, who will give us the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Fritz, Mayor, Council members. I am Ross Swanson. I'm the Capital Project Manager with Parks and Recreation. And with me is Bernie Karosky from Prosper Portland, Councilor Shirley Craddock from Metro. David Porter from Leach Garden Friends was to be here, but he's unfortunately ill today, and he sends his thank you. And if you don't know, the Leach Garden Friends is the nonprofit that operates the programming at the garden. So earlier this year, David and I were here to amend the design contract for the upcoming Leach Garden capital project. We requested the change to that design contract because of the successful fundraising efforts that the coalition here put together, allowing us to pursue the ambitious project that you have before you. Today, we are here specifically to secure the intergovernmental agreement with the Metro funding source, but also we wanted to acknowledge the other partners at the table. So before I turn over the microphone to the partner representatives, I wanted to provide a brief history and a description of the project. The goals of the plan, back in 2014, Leach Garden Friends and Portland Parks and Recreation entered into a master planning and a capital project for the garden, which was catalyzed by the acquisition of a property just to the north of the longtime standing property. We hired a nationally recognized garden team of Land Morphology and Olson Kundig out of Seattle. They master planned and created a development strategy which included how do we develop in a rational manner that we can ensure that the Leach Garden Friends can maintain the property as we developed. The goals of the plan were to connect the upper garden with the lower garden in the iconic manor house that we all know. They were to create community open space and provide a regional draw and a national recognition garden for East Portland. While Portland does have a lot of world-renowned gardens within Portland, most of them are on the west side. And then finally, strategically balance the operations and revenues for the garden. The slide before you is the first phase of the upper garden developed, sort of extracted out of the 2015 full development plan. The scope of work for this project does include improved infrastructure and utilities. It includes an aerial tree walk as demonstrated by the upper left and the lower slide. And then community open spaces including a fireplace terrace and gathering green. And finally, a habitat and pollinator garden that's in the upper right, and Metro funded this piece of work. So the project revenues are a result of 4 years of fundraising and is a cross-section of both private and public funding, which is why we're presenting to you today to celebrate this broad partnership. Parks Department has recently contributed $5.5 million of SDCs. Thank you, Commissioner. Leach Garden Friends is contributing $1.26 in its fundraising efforts. And finally, our public agency partners who are at the table with me, Metro also committed the $188,000, and Prosper Portland committed another $1.8 million. As I said, we are here to accept the ordinance for Metro's Nature in the Neighborhoods grant. I should state that in addition to these numbers that we see, there was also roughly $1 million spent in getting us here through land use planning, and like I said, all the efforts for how we strategically develop this park properly. This is where I was going to turn it over to David Porter. He extends his gratitude to everybody who's gotten us here as well. Big thanks to Commissioner Fritsch for issuing the challenge that got us here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our partners, Metro Councilor Shirley Craddock.
Thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be able to be here today. It's really an honor, and I want to thank the voters of the region for allowing us to be able to make these funds available to the City of Portland. Leach, as you all know, Leach Botanical Gardens is a beautiful area in East Portland on 122nd. These improvements provide a great opportunity to further Metro's mission to protect our clean water and restore habitat and provide opportunities for people to experience nature close to home, as the gardens are right on Johnson Creek. I'm proud that Metro is able to support this grant and build visitor improvements and restore habitat at the gardens. It's a cherished area, particularly those residents that live in the David Douglas School District. Many of them are very proud of this area and often visit it. When the Grant Review Committee, the Nature Neighborhoods Grant Review Committee, selected this project for funding in 2016, the committee members said they were inspired by the committee's vision for this space and impressed by the momentum the project has garnered. They recognize that the strong partnerships that exist at the gardens with the numerous community organizations that are using Leach to engage people in nature in culturally sensitive ways. Leach Garden Friends has done an impressive job building meaningful relationships among the many community partners, volunteers, and neighbors that live in the area. Part of what makes this project so important is that it will provide easy access to nature for residents of East Portland, one of the city's most diverse areas, and as Commissioner Fritz has mentioned in the past, also an area that has the least access to parks. The Nature Neighborhoods Grant is thanks again to the voters of the Portland Metro region. 4 times now since 1995, the voters have approved setting funds aside for 2 large bond measures and 2 levies. And without these funds, this project would not be able to we would not be able to make this contribution today. As Metro begins to shape the region's next natural areas bond measure, it will incorporate some of the commitments it will incorporate our commitment to racial equity. We will look to projects like Leach as an example of how we can protect water quality, fish and wildlife habitat while providing access to nature close to home for people of color. So I want to say congratulations to the Portland Parks and Recreation Department. Thank you very much, Commissioner, for your support of this, and to the Leach Garden Friends and everybody that has worked on this and been able to make this happen. It's an honor to be able to give these funds to the city today. So thank you.
Bernie.
Okay. Good morning.
Morning.
Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners. My name is Bernie Karofsky. I'm a project manager at Prosper Portland, and I'm just here to say a few words in support of this great project. Prosper Portland released a 5-year strategic plan in 2015. The plan focuses our work on building an equitable economy, especially in communities of color and other underserved areas of Portland. The investments Prosper Portland makes reflect our key values: to make a difference, to build partnerships, to advance equity, and to innovate. We invest carefully to honor the public trust, and in doing so, we hope to affect and serve the people of Portland. When we build community, when we encourage shared prosperity, when we make a difference, we add to the prosperity of Portland. The Leach Botanical Garden projects aligns with our mission by increasing open space, access to healthy, complete neighborhoods that connect to jobs and transportation. We are very proud to support this project and to be here at this table in partnership with Metro, with Portland Parks and Recreation, and with Friends of Leach Botanical Gardens. Thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it. Commissioner Fritz.
I need to acknowledge that it was Commissioner Fish who first started pushing Leach Botanical Garden and kind of got me at first begrudgingly on board with this project and deferred to him as the Parks Commissioner, but it was really his fire and determination that got it started in the first place. I mean, obviously, the garden has been there for a long time and the Friends have been doing a valiant job. It's now become this broad partnership with Prosper, with Metro, started by Commissioner Fish, supported by all of us. Transportation is doing a major project with the bridge, which is going to enhance the entire area and the access, which is exciting. So thank you to everybody who's been involved. I know that former Multnomah County Commissioner Diane McKeel was instrumental in the fundraising along with the other members of the Leach Botanical Board. Mary Rose Navarro has been really a stalwart on a lot of these projects. And when you mentioned the 1995 bond measure, that project, my pet project, was the first thing that was funded with that 95 bond measure. So that's one of the reasons that I'm here on this council today, is recognizing that everybody needs a gem in their neighborhood. And this is certainly going to be a gem for East Portland, and I think for the country as a whole. I think people will come to Leach as an international destination, not just a regional or a city destination. So thank you for all your work.
Mayor, I just want to make a comment. First, thank you for those kind words, but you know, in 10 or 20 years, we're going to look back on what we've collectively done in East Portland. And we're going to take some pride in reversing a trend that, for, you know, the narrative for years was the city was not investing in East Portland and there was a big parks deficit. Just under the last 4 years of Commissioner Fritz, I think the city's investment has been in excess of $50 million in acquisition and build out of parks in East Portland. And we're just getting started, so it's very exciting. The other day I was, took a trip to a fundraiser at Zenger Farm, and I had dinner with my son in the urban Grange, looking out, you know, on the wetland, and it's a magical sight. But we were reflecting on the way out there that we drove through Lentz, and Lentz is almost unrecognizable with all of the new development that's happening around Greater Lentz. And we passed the Foster floodplain, which is a tremendous public amenity and well done. And then Zenger Farm, and of course just up the street is Leach Botanical Garden. And so what we have really is almost an eco-district that has formed. And, you know, as I think about, you know, when people come to the city and they say, I've got a 3-day weekend, you know, what are some of the highlights that we should look at? I now routinely tell them they should go out to Foster and hit one or more of those fantastic institutions. And they've all been nurtured through public-private partnerships, which is how we do our best work. So thank you to everybody. Thanks to Metro for this grant. Councilmember Craddock, I'll be seeing you tomorrow to talk about another bond measure and having a conversation at Metro. But this is really good work, and it's a great investment, and we're grateful that Metro has made this decision.
Thank you. But may I make one more comment? I just want to make sure you know how much we really appreciate the partnership the city has with Metro. And just this week, this last Saturday, we cut the ribbon for Whitaker Ponds, and so there were funds there that Metro was able to help with that area. That's on the Columbia Slough. Today, of course, is the Leach Botanical Gardens. This Friday, we'll be breaking ground on the Inclusive Nature Play at Cooch Park. And then on June 30th, the long-awaited celebration of Cully Park. So just like you described, it takes all of us to make this happen. And so thank you so much again for your partnership.
It's working. Very good. Public testimony on this item.
No one signed up.
Very good. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. Commissioner Fritz.
Isn't it emergency? No, you're right. Sorry. Mistaken my notes. I just also wanted to thank Lorna McGuire, the asset manager for Portland Parks and Recreation, who's here. Former Parks Director Mike Abate has been a strong supporter of this site throughout his time at the city. Current Interim Director Kia Selly is also right on board. So we will continue just powering right ahead. And thank you again for all of your partnerships.
Thank you.
Very good. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you. Next item, folks, we are moving item number 607 into this slot. Could you read, please, item 607?
What Work Cities Report.
Colleagues, our next item on the agenda is the final report for Portland's involvement in the Bloomberg What Works Cities initiative. A lot of people out there may think that government and innovation don't always go in the same sentence, or at least not neatly. This next 30 minutes will prove them wrong. We have a packed agenda to highlight how, in just a short amount of time, Portland has built the capacity to turn data into information that can be used for critical decision-making. There are big changes that we made with the help of this initiative, like the passage of the new open data city policy, the new open data policy, as well as changes that might seem small but are in fact tremendously important, such as the way that we deliver construction procurement. I trust that most of my fellow commissioners will already be very familiar with the progress that we're making with Gator sessions on housing development and 911 emergency response.
Tell people what Gator is.
Government accountability and
transparency
results. Thank you. Sessions on housing development and 911 emergency response. But you might be surprised to learn how bureaus across the city are applying behavioral insights to make it easier to engage with city government. This report also highlights the often unsung grassroots efforts to help city staff to build skills and connections, including the Tableau Users Group, the Performance Management Champions Group, and the PDX Process Improvement Coffee Hours, amongst others. This initiative has inspired a lot of new cross-bureau collaboration, as evidenced by the list of presenters from the City Budget Office, the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and Portland Bureau of Transportation. What's more, this report highlights the outstanding contributions of passionate and dedicated staff throughout the city. I believe we have a responsibility to ensure that public resources are used most efficiently and effectively while always considering equity. Our participation in What Works Cities has helped us achieve these goals. Director Scott and the rest of the What Works Cities team, I'm impressed with what you've been able to accomplish this far, and I look forward to seeing what's next. Director Scott.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Andrew Scott, I'm Director of the City Budget Office. So I'm really excited to be here today to talk about this and talk about the work we've done during this engagement with Bloomberg's What Works Cities program. We put together the report that we're bringing to you today for two different reasons.
Andrew, I just have to say, I think it's pretty outrageous that you're trying to take credit for the $188,000 Metro grant.
I was gonna start by saying I also appreciate the collaboration between the city and Metro. We put together today's report for two different reasons. One, to document and highlight the great work that's been done so far. And two, to present a roadmap for the kind of work that Portland should and really must continue to do going forward. And I know you have a busy schedule today, but one of the reasons why we're taking time to walk through some of these highlights of the work is because these really are the good government stories that unfortunately are very difficult to get out to the public. They're not really being told by the media, they're difficult to communicate, and we really need to take this opportunity to talk about this work and show people how we are making government better with real results.
Mayor, could we just take 1 minute? When someone takes this trouble to do a PowerPoint, can we just give it a fighting chance to see whether we can upload it? Because otherwise people
Is there
at
a
home-
problem with the PowerPoint?
I think it's on its way.
They're looking for it. No.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, do you know yours? Okay.
Well, maybe when it comes, we can do a quick catch-up?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, what the report and what we're going to walk through in terms of the presentation, it really does celebrate the achievements in using data and evidence to improve the lives and residents of Portland through this What Works Cities initiative. There's a slide which we'll get up in just a second in terms of overall agenda. But today's presentation, we're going to share the achievements of the last year and a half and talk about how city employees and employees in your bureaus busted out of their traditional silos to conduct this work over the last couple of years. And we're also going to share next steps and how we can continue to use these practices to create better results for Portland's community. This has truly been a citywide effort, as the mayor mentioned, as evidenced by the presenters that you're going to hear from today. And it's not just the City Budget Office and Planning, Sustainability, and Transportation. We've worked with a number of other bureaus on this as well. And at this point, I will
take a pause for a minute
to see if we can get this up.
Let's take a 2-minute recess.
More tea?
slide 2 in terms of the agenda, and I just had actually finished that. So you're going to hear from a number of people, and I'm going to turn it over very shortly to folks to talk through some of the specifics. So slide 3, in terms of What Works City overview, what was the What Works City initiative in the city of Portland? So Bloomberg's What Works Cities initiative was a 3-year, $42 million national initiative that was launched in April of 2015. And the goal was to help 100 mid-sized American cities enhance their use of data and evidence to make government more effective. Portland was named a What Works City in September 2016, joining a prestigious network that already included Seattle, San Francisco, Boise, Las Vegas, Denver, Kansas City, New Orleans, and Anchorage. The City Budget Office and Bureau of Planning and Sustainability led the initiative on behalf of the city, and it was endorsed by council resolution in September 2016. So how did the initiative work, and particularly how did it work here in Portland? I think it's fair to say that everyone in government wants to use data and evidence in making decisions, but they often struggle to figure out exactly how to do that. And that's exactly what the Bloomberg What Works Cities initiative was designed to do, provide guidance and coaching to local governments. At its core, the initiative helped city staff build their own skills and capacity so they were able to make their own governments more effective. And the approach was not just to tell cities that this is the right way to work, but actually to work alongside city staff and show us how we can solve real problems. The What Works Cities initiative was not a monetary grant. Instead, the initiative paired Portland with expert technical assistance in a few different areas of opportunity. In Portland's case, we had a unique opportunity to work with 5 internationally renowned technical partners and 1 peer jurisdiction to build our own capacity to use data and evidence in different ways. We worked with the Sunlight Foundation, Results for America, the United Kingdom's Behavioral Insights Team, Denver's Peak Academy, Johns Hopkins GovX, and finally Harvard's Government Performance Labs. All of that technical assistance that the city received was paid for by the Bloomberg Foundation. We also, through this process, gained a really valuable peer network of other cities that are doing very similar work. That network allows us to really get under the hood of city government and understand why initiatives succeed or fail in different cities. And through this process, we can benchmark our own progress against some of the other leading cities in this area throughout the country and, frankly, throughout the world. We hear a lot of talk about government needing to be more creative, more innovative, more data-driven. And we hear about it, frankly, so much that sometimes those concepts become buzzwords and they can become easy to tune out. What you're going to hear about today is where those buzzwords have actually become real. And what I've challenged today's presenters to do is cut through that jargon and tell you and the public what this really means for them. Bottom line, it means better services and better government. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Kevin Martin, who's going to talk about open data, and we'll take the agenda from there.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, City Council. I'm Kevin Martin. I'm leading the Open Data and Smart City PDX programs out of the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. It's amazing. It's been a year since City Council adopted Ordinance 188356 to establish an open data program in the city. I'm here today to tell you what we've done since then and what we plan over the next 3 to 6 months with respect to that program. Some of the highlights of the program to date, a big one, and it took a little while, but we're happy that we finally got there, is we did recruit a new open data coordinator for the city, Hector Dominguez on my team, who will really be leading this discussion with you all and the public going forward on how we actually implement this program. We partnered with UC Berkeley, a researcher out of UC Berkeley, to evaluate current data governance practices in the city. How are we using data? Where are the problems? How can we better capitalize on data to inform our decision making? We just had a report. That report was wrapped up in May. She presented to our Smart City Steering Committee. We're now looking at using that report to help us guide this program over the next few months. We've also identified focused areas for implementation. So we're initially focusing on planning and sustainability, transportation, housing, and in partnership with the Bureau of Technology Services. And we've put together the initial members of a data governance team, which will guide the implementation of the open data program going forward. And then where we focused most of our effort over the last really 6 months is piloting a centralized system for data management, recognizing that to be effective in our data sharing, we first need to manage data better as a city. And if you recall, I was here in front of the City Council last month talking about the Portland Urban Data Lake, which is a partnership between BPS, PBOT, BTS, Portland State University, Portland General Electric, TriMet, Metro, hopefully I'm not missing anybody there, and also in collaboration with the cities of Austin and Denver to really build a new way for cities to manage their data in a way that makes it easier to develop insight from it. So that's really foundational to both our Smart City and Open Data program. And that pilot is moving forward. Officially, we've been moving forward on several pilots, one with Hack Oregon, one with a company called Cloudera that's going to kick off next month. And so next steps over the next 3 to 6 months, we're going to work with data stewards in the bureaus to identify and create some initial data governance policies around how we share data, how we protect privacy as we make data more available to the public and the private sector. We're going to begin to inventory data sets that we have as a city. We've done a pretty good job of inventorying our spatial data, our GIS data as a city. In fact, we're the envy of many other cities in that regard, but everything else is, there's a lot of unknowns. So we're gonna officially start inventorying data across the city. We're gonna evaluate our current open data portals. We have a Portland Maps open data portal and a Civic Apps open data portal, both with several hundred data sets that are already available to the public. We're going to evaluate what's working and not working with those two portals, and if we can combine them into a single single point of entry for open data for the city of Portland. And then we're going to develop a community engagement strategy for how we really lead this conversation around data with the community and with a focus on equity, which is a priority of both our Smart Cities work and our open data work. We're going to continue to test and evaluate Puddle as a system for data management. We're planning on bringing a high-level set of data privacy principles to City Council in September, so you'll hear more about that soon. And then we will be presenting you all with an annual report on the Open Data Program, looking at doing that in October. So much more to come on what we have and what we will be doing over the next few months. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon Carney for an update on performance management.
Perfect, thanks, Kevin. I just want to know one thing. How do you become a data steward? Anyway, don't have to answer that. Okay, so I'm Shannon Carney. I am the performance management analyst from the City Budget Office, and just want to say a few words today about how we implemented the scope of work with Government Center for Excellence, or GovEx was their short name, one of the What Works Cities partners on performance management. So really, at the outset of the engagement with this initiative, it's kind of an interesting place to start with performance management because we really have a fairly mature program when we compare ourselves to other mid-sized cities across the United States. We're already convening Gator sessions on important issues to the city. We had an online interactive City Bureau performance dashboard, and we have a strong foundation for how we use performance data in the budget process. So, initially the initiative came to town and said, you probably don't really need to work on performance management. But the interesting thing was when we took a closer look, checked in with bureaus about how they felt about their use of data and performance, it really brought to light the reality was that while some bureaus have good access to data and use data proactively to manage their day-to-day operations, for others that wasn't necessarily the case. And that at the bureau level, we were challenged to work consistently towards shared citywide goals. So really what we decided to do with this scope of work then is to build a strategy, to strengthen our strategy, and provide a more effective management framework for the city. So starting with the Gator program, we've held Gator sessions on a number of different issues. We've worked on streamlining affordable housing development and on increasing housing supply. We've worked on improving our 911 call response to national standards. We've addressed police patrol staffing, improving pedestrian safety, and we have an upcoming session on the important topic of community livability. So just to hit on some of the successes with the Gator sessions that we worked with the support of What Works Cities. One is that around housing development, and this is a really big issue, and what we're trying to do is make development easier and faster for customers while maintaining quality in what we do as a city. And one of those ways is we put the customer first in putting minor improvement permit processing online. And as you can see with the graph there, the uptake was really immediate. So this was something where customers used to have to come into the Development Services Center to get a small permit. Now they can do that online. It saves them time. So we also looked internally. So, an important piece of development services is having staff to review those building plans and public works permits, right? So one thing we noted is that our time to fill with recruitments, and this is some really interesting data from BHR that we looked at in the sessions, was longer than we wanted it to be. What we've seen is by prioritizing this issue across bureaus, trying out new strategies, we've seen those times drop, in some cases by 10 to 15 days. And this is the most recent data. Yeah.
You're just looking at the development staff in those bureaus?
No, this data is from the entire bureau. So it's more of an overview, but yeah.
And what was the consideration on equity issues? Because sometimes it's not the people. Some people may be more likely to be watching the NeoGov site than others. How do we make sure that we have?
Yeah, and I think that's a good question. That wasn't the particular focus. I mean, the focus of the session was on strategies to fill positions that the vacancies were causing a slowdown in operations. The bureaus themselves, do incorporate equity strongly into their processes. So I think the goal is to have a reasonable timeline for filling vacancies while maintaining our city's commitment around equity and diversity in staffing.
I think we do need to have a conversation. If those two are at odds, which one should trump?
Yeah, Commissioner, I think it's a great question and a great example where we can actually use the data from before making changes to the process and after to really see whether it changed the nature of both who we were getting in our applicant pool and who we were hiring. And I think to the extent we do see a change, then we absolutely need to dig back in. On the other hand, we may not see a change, and it may be something that we can still achieve our equity goals and speed up our hiring. But I think that's a perfect example of how the more data we have when we look at these processes, the more it's going to inform what we do.
And who is going to be responsible for getting that data?
Yeah, so BHR actually has a fantastic new online dashboard that they are providing to every bureau that shows not just the time for their own recruitments within that bureau, but it also shows the diversity of the applicant pool and the applicants who were hired. And they've just rolled that out in the last few months and relatively quietly, I think, to the bureaus. And I find when I saw my own dashboard, it's fantastic information that we didn't have access to before.
But in terms of the process, changing the process, has that affected the outcomes as to who gets hired? Who is responsible for looking at that data and figuring that out?
I think your question today will prompt us to go back and figure out exactly who should be responsible to look into it. I think it'll be BHR in conjunction with the bureaus.
Thank you.
But I really appreciate the question.
Great. So in looking at other sessions, just want to highlight a few more things on the Gator front. So we had some really good success with our session on meeting national standards for 911 emergency response for the city. We actually saw call taking times, the percentage of calls answered within 20 seconds, which is the key measure for this area, increased by over 4% over just a very short time frame. It was a 6-month check-in after that first session. So moving on, a second area that we worked with GovX was really to improve our data because, we can have management frameworks to use data, but if we don't have good data that we're looking at, then that doesn't get us very far. So in order to improve our performance measures, we've done a couple of things. So one thing is we actually we revamped our technical assistance to bureaus because in most cases, bureaus are collecting this data and developing their own measures. And that really resulted in a lot of great new measures in this new budget process. For FY 18-19. We also pursued certification along an international standard for city metrics. That's a really exciting development as well over the last year. So we joined, only a few other U.S. cities in being able to compare our city data on the world stage with the ISO 37120. And then finally, and I think potentially most exciting, is that the City Budget Office will be launching a new Portland Community Survey in FY 18-19. That's exciting because this is the way that we have to go out to the community to understand our outcomes in certain areas that are hard to measure otherwise.
Who's going to do that?
The City Budget Office will be leading that work with the citywide project team.
Okay, and let me just put a marker down on that because I think we've had some experience, obviously, with the survey that was done by
the auditor's office, the
ombudsperson, and Andrew, we've had a lot of robust conversations in this room and privately about what are the most important metrics, and what does the public really care about?
Right.
And you know, we know that if you ask people, they're going to say they love fire and parks. It's probably the same in most cities probably, you know, tend in that direction. It's partly because it's what people experience most directly. They're grateful for a fire bureau that is there if there's a problem. And, you know, we spend a lot of time in our public parks. So it's sort of like, you know, if you went off the press clippings, you'd think that TriMet was the least popular institution in our community. Actually, it's the most popular institution. Why? Because so many people use it and are invested in it. So I would urge, well before you even get to sort of the concept of a survey, that you engage the council in thinking about categories, kinds of questions. And then I think we also need to bring in, you know, DHM or someone to help us frame the questions so that we're really getting useful data. And then, because if we're going to do this the right way and put some money behind it and have a bigger pool, then we have to be prepared to act on the results. So I just want to make sure that the information we get is as scientific as possible.
Yeah, really appreciate
As I
those
know,
comments.
as do
Yeah,
you.
yeah, no, and that actually is part of the plan. We're consulting, or we will be in the near future with a number of city bureaus first, bringing that back to council just in draft form to sort of say this is the direction we're going, get that feedback. It's going to be we're not going to rush through that process because it is so important that we make sure the questions we're asking are the right ones, so that the data we get can be used well into the future to gauge what we're doing. So absolutely, thank you.
Commissioner Fritz.
And I would add to that, certainly with the experience of the police accountability and looking at how do you get better data from communities of colour and people who are perhaps more affected by police actions, that professional polling is the way to go. In addition to what you said, Commissioner Fish, which I totally endorse, the questions matter, but who is asked and how they're asked. And I don't know, there's been some experience with professional polling reaching out to communities of colour, immigrant refugee communities with the co-op process. We would need to be very careful that whoever we employ is going to have that expertise.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. All right, thank you. So, and I just want to close with our last strategy that we had. Yep, next slide. Myself. I've advanced the slide. Okay, so really the last thing we did with What Works Cities was we worked on fostering a larger culture of performance across the city. And to this end, we've convened several citywide groups to help support bureaus and employees that are actually doing this work. The first I want to highlight is the Tableau User Group. This is a group that we started with the Parks and Recreation Department, brings analysts together to share knowledge and build skills around data visualization and data analysis. Technology in this area changes really fast. So these employees have been able to support each other and actually train each other on how to use this software. Employees in the Tableau User Group have developed dashboards that you've actually seen here at Council. One is the Office of Equity and Human Rights Demographics Dashboard. Another you'll be seeing tomorrow with the adopted budget dashboard that we have for FY 18-19 adopted budget. And you know, host scores of dashboards that are meant for internal management use. And the next step is, you know, we're looking to adopt Tableau Server to improve our security and sharing and management of data across city bureaus. The other group I want to highlight is the new Performance Management Champions Group. This group is meant to support and help employees that are working to do performance management in their own bureaus. So to actually overcome the obstacles that we have as an organization and be more successful, do more with the resources that we have for the community. So with that, I think we have a whole new round of folks to talk more about the scopes of work. We've got low-cost evaluation next.
I just have to ask, did the What Works Cities tell you to put a bird on it, or was that a Portland edition?
That was Portland.
Like it?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Katie Scheifling with the City Budget Office.
Lindsay Mazer, Planning and Sustainability.
Thank you.
Over the last year, we worked with the Behavioral Insights team, also known as the Nudge Unit. They started as a small office in the UK government and now help governments all around the world to redesign services to be more people-friendly and cost-efficient. While other cities did 2 to 3 projects with the Behavioral Insights team, we actually ended up doing 10. And that's because we had a fantastic response from across the city, from program staff essentially, who wanted to use these tools to improve their programs. What we learned over the past year is that small changes can have a really big impact. With each project that we did, we made small tweaks to existing programs and have seen it provide a better experience for Portlanders and also city staff. The approach we used did two things. First, we used what we know about behavior and decision-making to make services easier for Portlanders to understand and to use. And then second, we test these new ways of doing things so we can find out what really works.
One of our first projects was making BDS code enforcement letters easier to understand. We simplified language, highlighted what the recipient needed to do, and provided clear steps to resolve the problem. In another project, we made it easier for people to sign up for Multnomah County's Track Your Ballot service. Instead of sending people to a website and then to a sign-up form, we tried sending people directly to the sign-up form. It turns out that by reducing the process by just one click, 42% more people signed up for that service. We also focused on using messages that motivated people to take action. In one project, we worked with PBEM to encourage city staff to prepare for a natural disaster. We created a user-friendly checklist and then emailed it to all employees, trying out a few different messages. We found that 24% more staff were motivated to download the checklist after being reminded that Portlanders will be counting on them to help get the city up and running after a natural disaster.
We did a similar test with the Police Bureau, this time looking at which messages were most likely to motivate potential new recruits. We sent out 16,000 postcards, and while the overall response rate was low, as we would expect with a big ask like changing one's profession, it was a low-cost tool to help us test what messaging actually works. Police departments here and around the country have tended to use messages about community and the challenge of the job to attract new recruits. But the Behavioral Insights team has found that messages about salary and benefits have been more successful at attracting new officers, especially candidates of color and women. And we actually found the same effect here in Portland with the salary and benefits message being over 4 times as effective as receiving no postcard at all, and more effective than the other messages that we tested as well.
One of the other things we found is the importance of getting messages out to people at the right time. We worked with Biketown as they sent out postcards encouraging people to try the service. They sent half the postcards to people who lived in a neighborhood where a new Biketown station had recently been added. The other postcards went to people who had recently moved into a neighborhood that already had a Biketown station. We found that people who had just moved were 4 times as likely to try Biketown. And that's because when you've just moved, you're not yet as set in your regular routines of how you get to work or to the store, so you're more open to trying new things. In all of our projects, we tried to make our programs more user-friendly, understanding that people are busy and have better things to do than wade through bureaucratic language. The final project we'll share is a great example of this. The Police Bureau's false alarm staff wanted to make their letters more user-friendly and just more friendly in general. So we worked with them to rewrite their notification letter, simplifying language and providing tips to avoid future false alarms. We don't have the data in yet, but so far staff have noted that people have a better understanding when they call in, and one customer actually complimented the new letter, while another apologized for using police time to respond to their false alarm.
Beyond the insights that we gain from these sort of specific projects, we've also been able to build internal capacity and excitement for applying these tools to the city of Portland. In addition to running over 3 times as many projects as other cities, a number of our projects were actually led by frontline staff who see the value of this work to improve their programs. Across the world, governments are rapidly expanding their use of behavioral insights to strengthen policies and programs. DC, Chicago, New York City all have established behavioral insights teams, and they've used nudges to improve all kinds of outcomes, from increasing uptake of low-income assistance programs to reducing traffic congestion. So what's next for the city of Portland? This past year has served as a solid proof of concept. While the city's contract with the Behavioral Insights team has come to an end, we're still exploring opportunities. Staff are excited about continuing this work, and in fact, we're scoping a project with the Revenue Division right now that we hope to launch in the next couple of weeks. With additional resources and executive support, the city can scale these efforts and continue to make our services more people-friendly and cost-effective. And with that, unless you guys have questions.
I have 2 questions, if I could. A couple years ago, I went before either the Gator or its predecessor, and I made a request that we pull together from every bureau every standardized notice that goes out advising someone that they've done something wrong. That's usually accompanied by either a warning, an action and/or a fine. And my particular interest at that point was to make sure that we used identical, standard, easy-to-understand language in the correspondence about the right to challenge that action. And since the council has worked with the auditor to waive most of the fees, I wanted to make sure that there was standardized language. Do we know whether we've made any progress in that? And have bureaus been cooperating in providing their templates so that someone can make sure they're all consistent in terms of the notice they give to our customers?
You know, that's a great question. I'm not sure about the exact progress on that standardized language issue, but I do know that every bureau that we have worked with has been very forthcoming and sort of saying, you know, sort of admitting that, like, hey, our forms aren't that great, we haven't looked at them in a while, and are very excited about sort of taking steps to make the language more simple, easier for people to understand, and make the action steps very clear. And to the degree that there's sort of standard language that should be in all of those things, I mean, that would be very easy to incorporate into this work.
So one of the things that always drives me crazy in this job is that you know, we work very long hours, we're out in the community talking to people, and often the biggest self-inflicted wound is the way the city then communicates with our stakeholders and the public we serve. And, you know, you can be at a forum and someone's upset about something, but it could also be because just the day before they got a notice about, for example, a problem with their sidewalk, and they weren't able to understand the letter, they weren't able to figure out next steps, and it wasn't clear what their recourse was. So, Mayor, I would urge, since you're a champion of the Gator process, that on this one, you just direct that every bureau furnish to some centralized authority all those standardized type letters that go out that contain any kind of fee, fine or warning or whatever. And just let's start maybe with just making sure that we've all agreed across bureaus in the same language that says you have the right to appeal this. You know, the city has a policy of waiving fee or has waived the fees or whatever, and here's who you contact. I like what you said earlier about small changes with big impact. To me, that's a customer service type thing. So that's one thing. The second thing is someone told me recently that in the November election, statewide, 70% of the voters will be over the age of 50. So think about that for a second. That's from the top consultant in Oregon saying that they expect that 70% of the voters will be 50 years or older. So the principal tool that we use as a state to facilitate the election process is we send out a voter's pamphlet. The conspicuous feature about the voter's pamphlet statement is that most people over the age of 50 can't read it. And while it's incredibly helpful in terms of jamming a lot of information in a very small piece, which is an art to doing that, the fact is that the font size is completely at odds with the likely viewers, or the audience of that document. I don't know offhand, you know, what the data is on actually who reads it. Most people I know read it, particularly in races where they just don't have any, you know, clue one way or another, like ballot measures and even some uncontested races. But think about that. 70% of the voters are over 50, and yet we send out a voter's pamphlet statement that most older adults can't read unless they have a magnifying glass or they have their reading glasses on or something. And what a statement about accessibility. So the other piece that I want to put on the table is Elders in Action has been our partner for a long time, and they've also been one of our loudest critics about the way we put together information that older adults see. And there are three primary concerns they raise are font, and yes, it costs more to pump up the font and have the same document. So yes, the answer is it's going to cost a little bit more. Check. The way the information is put together, is it confusing or is it simplified? And then the third thing, which was not self-evident to me, although I guess I'm getting closer to their target audience, is that we have this bad habit of listing like 20 phone numbers you can call because, you know, we're really smart. We want everyone to have, you know, the phone book. And their message is, please just put one phone number so that the 80-year-old woman who gets this, who's a widow and sitting at home, there's one number she can call because she's not going to be able to figure out, you know, 10 numbers or have the patience to go through that. So The other thing I would urge us to do, in addition to standardizing some language and using Gator to have the CAO demand, just require each bureau hand them in, and we're going to do a quick analysis to upgrade them, is that we go to the next level here and make sure that older adults can understand what we send out. And I can tell you, because we got kind of beat up at Water on one document, and it was a low-income discount program document that went to a lot of older adults, and I've never seen such withering commentary we got back. And I'm so grateful that we had a partner that, could tell us. But the big change came that it cost more to go from this to this. Except what we ended up with was actually, like what your presentation points out, is gets a better response, easier to understand. So I applaud the work you're doing, and I urge us to look for standardized appeal language, and to remember that older adults are often the ones that aren't able to read or interpret some of the stuff we send out, and we ought to have a special focus on making sure our documents are age-friendly.
Absolutely.
Good morning, everyone. Michael Kerr from PBOT. I manage our Office of Strategy, Innovation, and Performance, and I'm here today to provide you with an overview of an effort that we kicked off roughly 8 months ago and actually just concluded around 2 weeks ago with the Harvard Government Performance Lab to do some exploration on whether or not results-driven contracting could benefit us from a bureau's perspective in terms of two of our biggest priorities, which are fixing our streets projects within their annual deadlines, as well as speeding the efficiency by which we deliver capital projects in general to the public. And let me say from the outset that this is a bureau initiating an investigation of the procurement process, but we have been, from the outset, working hand in hand with Central Procurement. From the very beginning, we met with Larry Palat at the time around what we were trying to do. He was all in favor of us launching this review, and we have been working hand in hand with them from the very beginning. So before I dive in, the innovation approach that my office utilizes and the innovation approach that has guided this work is to always start with a big idea. In this case, speed up the construction procurement process. That is not a simple problem. That is not a simple, there are no simple solutions. We know that. We knew that from the outset. But we know we have to tackle this because when it comes to capital project delivery in general and how we procure and provide construction services, we know we have to get better. And to that end, we knew we had to dive in. So with that, we unpacked this problem and we are starting small. We are doing some very small improvements, small meetings, small collaboratives, and that's our method of proceeding. We are gathering data through this investigation and adjusting our approach as we go. That is how we will continue to do this, and as I said before, we are doing this in lockstep with Central Procurement. As far as what this effort set out to achieve, the overall dual purpose was obviously to advance our ability to deliver the results that we set out to deliver via our construction efforts across the Bureau, and to do so by speeding up the procurement process. At the same time, we wanted to explore how results-driven contracting might benefit us and how these mechanisms, these collaborative, data-driven mechanisms might actually enable us to better our relationship with Central Procurement, improve understanding, things along those lines. To do that, what we set out to achieve were 3 specific outcomes. The first was to do a formal deep dive review into the construction procurement process, to explore what was working, what's not working, where improvements might exist, where were the breakdowns occurring, where were the bottlenecks, so on and so forth. This is, when we talk about data-driven approaches, this is the data gathering process that has fed everything that we've lined up, the implementation plans, et cetera, as we move forward. The second was to pilot active procurement management. This is GPL's tool, this is their method, and again, when it breaks down to what the real tangible aspects of this are, it is around getting around a table, having conversations, truly collaborating around best practice and how we can execute when it comes to soliciting goods and services. And then finally, we wanted to dig deep into our DMW ESB minority vendor solicitations to understand what was working, what wasn't, and to really get out into that community and try and understand where we were being effective and where we weren't and how we can improve those relationships. So before I go into what we're trying to do about what we found, let me give you a quick overview of what we did find when we dove into the procurement process. Across the board, every interviewee, the consensus was, yes, we agree, we need to improve. Let me just start from there. How they suggested we improve really broke down into 3 specific themes. The first, fairly obvious, but when you get into it, the communication between bureaus, in this case Central Procurement and us, PBOT, fundamentally broke down too often throughout the process. First and foremost, when you look at volume and workload impacts, so in our case, how many projects are we going to pitch over to Central Procurement on given dates? Wasn't well known at any given time, and we weren't very good necessarily at being proactive and informing them as to what we were going to pitch over the fence. As far as workload goes, and then when Central Procurement receives these and then has to allocate these out to their various staff, how they handle the various projects that we're pitching over, that was unclear to us. So back and forth, it's creating sort of a black box effect whereby we're pitching over projects, we assume they can get done, but they really can't because Central Procurement didn't know they were coming, and hey, this is way too many for us to handle given the capacity we have on us already from other bureaus. Prioritization in our case, we were not very good at communicating what was highest priority. So in a set of 20 projects, what comes first, what comes second when it gets down to the nuts and bolts of what we really need to get out there today, given political, societal, or just bureau needs. And then finally, procurement planning in terms of how we solicit, how we group various projects, how we actually go out to bid. In large part, this was based on inherent, just embedded assumptions, things we'd done 10 years ago, 5 years ago, last year. And we know the law does change and things do change. We identify new and better ways of doing procurement. And this is where we definitely needed to work better with our procurement specialists within the construction procurement group in Central Procurement to really understand how do we proceed? How do we do this? They're there, they know, they're the experts. Let's rely on them for that service. Quickly, the process misunderstanding and misalignment, this goes without saying. We in PBOT, we didn't really know how the process worked. It wasn't well documented, which is the last point on here. Or if documentation was there, it was outdated, and we were, as I said on the prior thread, we assume things to be the case when in fact it doesn't really work that way. So when you get to sending things over to Central Procurement, they're seeing a lot of variability in terms of how things were prepared from a bid book perspective, which leads to immense amounts of churn, immense amounts of passback, things going back and forth, just in terms of edits and us thinking things were allowable when they're not. And it was happening throughout across both our engineering groups, capital projects groups, and Central Procurement. And when you just look at it and holistically, something needed to happen in order to fix this issue. And then finally, DMW ESB vendor communication and engagement. We went out to the community. We met with the minority contractor associations and spoke to them directly about, from our PBOT perspective, how were the things that we were trying to do, how were they working? Let me start by saying that the Prime Contractor Development Program is incredibly popular amongst this community, but they will say flat out that it is not enough. It's only one program, and there's only one person in that program running that. And there's an immense need, and they want more from us. So from our bureau perspective, in terms of us getting out and really promoting our projects.
Michael, can I interrupt you for just one
Yes.
second? Kids, where are you from? Excellent. All right. Well, welcome to Portland City Hall. Are you enjoying your tour? All right, good. Well, we're glad to have you here. This is the City Council, and this is what we do. Thanks for being here today. We appreciate it. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
No problem. So long story short, we knew we had work to do. They needed us to be out there more, mentoring, communicating, really being proactive in terms of informing them of what's coming up. The hot construction market, they've got a lot of work on their plates. These are independent contractors. When we pitch over a project 2 days ahead of time, they don't have time to respond. So you'll see, as you'll see on the next slide, we're working to fix this issue.
I am really glad that you had that both as a goal and an outcome, and then doing the extra work on it. Thank you.
You're welcome. We're setting aspirational goals as a bureau, which we're going to actively pursue. So as far as our response goes, it just breaks down into 3 core focus areas. I will say again, with Lester Spittler on board, we have already met. We've spoken about this. He is with us on piloting these various efforts. With respect to coordination with Central Procurement, we're setting up bi-monthly meetings where we get around a table, we talk about what's coming up, and we talk about how we can handle this. This is that volume workload conversation, so it happens in real time. And so we walk out of that meeting with understanding of what's possible. We're establishing strategic annual procurement meeting where we sit down and we present all the projects we have for that year and how we might go about procuring that. And this is soliciting the professional expert perspective from the central procurement specialists around how we might do this so that we don't have to adjust course mid-year, late in the year around how we're going to procure, so we know up front how we're going to do this. And then finally, we're going to train, and we're going to get central procurement in the room with us to make sure we all start from the same baseline perspective. In terms of internal alignment, just briefly, we're going to prioritize. We're going to be better about communicating with central procurement about what we have, what's top priority, and what we need to get done, and what timeframes and what our expectations are. And then finally, with DMW ESB, we were lucky through this budget approval process to get ourselves a position in the adopted budget who will focus exclusively on DMW ESB contracting. That is their sole job. So they will be out there in the community, ongoing outreach, promoting our projects, and ensuring that we are attending the meetings, we are getting there early in the morning, and we are mentoring these vendors. We are also, with central procurement, actively looking at the data, constantly keeping pace of our utilization. So how are we doing on a project-by-project basis? And this will be an ongoing effort. So I'll cap it off there and just say that I just wanted to, again, thank central procurement for the work they've done with us. And lastly, just say that we are going to pilot these efforts, prove out what works. And I already know from Lester Spittler and central procurement, when we find things that are working, we are looking and willing to scale this up to other infrastructure bureaus as well so they can benefit from the work that we've done.
Very good. Thank you.
One more item, 2 more minutes to wrap up, and we will finish. Go ahead,
I
Jane
need
Marie.
2 minutes. Jane Marie, Ford City Budget Office. We're going to talk very briefly about our final engagement related to process improvement, equipping employees with a new toolkit to do their work more efficiently, effectively, and equitably. We, alongside the Bureau of Human Resources, were very excited to work with Denver Peak Academy. The program drew from Lean and Six Sigma to create a process improvement methodology specifically geared for government. They started small, but in just a few years, they have trained over half of the city workforce, and they have saved and reinvested over $15 million through process improvement. So over the last 18 months, we have adapted and shared Peak's process improvement training with primarily frontline staff across the city. These employees are using skills to reduce wait times, streamline approval processes, eliminate unnecessary paper, collect better data, reduce barriers to access, and other small and large improvements that translate to savings of time, dollars, and frustration.
Aaron Kaufman, City Budget Office. To date, we have trained over 40 city staff, providing them with a shared toolkit, language, and vision. We have also established a support system that includes not only formal training, but ongoing technical support and, importantly, a community of process improvement champions who meet regularly to collaborate, share ideas, and problem solve. PDX process improvement participants are currently working on projects throughout the city, and we want to highlight just one for you today that illustrates how this work helps break down silos, eliminate waste, and improve outcomes for everyone involved. Staff from the Bureau of Environmental Services who attended our December 2017 workshop wanted to shorten their bureau's lengthy recruitment and hiring process. They reached out to BHR to help, and you can see the complex process map and other tools the team used to identify the problem's causes and solutions. This project is still ongoing, but BES is already seeing significant efficiencies. And since PDX process improvement brings together staff from multiple bureaus, lessons learned from this project are spreading throughout the city. Examples like this show how process improvement champions are making real changes in their bureaus in both small and big ways. We are seeing a movement built by driven staff to make Portland not just the city that works, but the city that works better. Thank you for your time.
So 2 very quick things to wrap up, and thank you for everyone for sort of walking through that. And again, we really wanted to give a sense of the overall breadth of what we were able to do under the What Works Cities program. I want to first tie this back a little bit. Throughout all of this, we've talked about some of the different savings that can occur. One of the things the mayor did as part of the 18-19 budget was ask bureaus to spend the next 12 months finding efficiencies, finding 1% of their budget that could be saved through exactly the kind of efforts that we're talking about here today. Not reductions in frontline services, not reductions in things that the community will see or feel, but things that we can do internally to improve our processes, to improve our revenue collection, to make other changes that can improve the way we provide government and in effect save money. And so this is one of those opportunities. And I really hope as bureaus go through this process, they look back at some of the lessons learned and a lot of these, I mean, we had a lot of bureaus participate, so they already have staff who are trained in process improvement and trained in other techniques that'll really help them. But I think that's one of the things, one of the ways that we can turn this into actual, budget savings moving forward. And two, I hope this effort has shown with actual hard data the benefits of doing this work. And as a result, we're really hoping that you, council, continue to support the work that's going on in the bureaus and push your own bureaus to do more of this. We really need to figure out how to make this a part of Portland's culture, where we always ask the question first, why are we doing that? And then ask the follow-up question, if we're doing it for a good reason, how can we do it better? I think what you heard today from staff, this work is really hard. It's very detailed. It's very nerdy, good government stuff. And it's frankly, it's not sexy, right? It doesn't get a whole lot of public play, but it is incredibly vital to, frankly, building the trust of our community in city government that we're going to be providing services in the best way possible. With that, thank you very much for your time. Again, I get really excited about this stuff, and thank you for listening, and we're happy to take any further questions you have.
Colleagues, any further questions?
Andrew, is this your last appearance before council?
We will be adopting the budget tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, good.
Very good. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to accept the report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Carla, please call the roll.
Fish?
Well, thank you for an excellent presentation, and it's important work. I think one of the significant challenges that we're going to have is to translate this work into a narrative that the people we serve understand and find compelling. I'm having just been on the campaign trail for 8 or 9 months. There's something fairly humbling about spending a lot of time in this building talking about the stuff that we talk about, and then going out and hearing the concerns that people have day to day. And there's a grand canyon that separates sort of the day-to-day stuff we do and what you're likely to hear from people in their backyards about what they care about. And I think one of our challenges is to continue to narrow that gap. And we do that by using language which is accessible, and we do it by understanding better what people really care about and then delivering those services. And I think in this work, Andrew, the great opportunity is to translate this into, here's why this matters. Not because we get a gold star from someone or something else, but I like what you said earlier about, Denver saving millions of dollars and then plowing them into other things. And that's not a narrative that we fill very often. I remember Senator Proxmire used to have a monthly award he gave out called the Golden Fleece Award, and he would talk about the greatest example of waste and fraud and abuse in the federal government. That served his interest politically, but didn't do a great job burnishing the credentials of the federal government. And maybe there's a way that we can not only make progress on these worthy goals, but then find a way to talk to the public about it so that it's relevant. We did this not just because Harvard says it's the right thing to do, but because we saved some money, and as a result, we were able to lower your rates or whatever. So the more we connect this to people's day-to-day lives and their experience, the better. But I'm excited by what you've launched and left behind, and certainly very committed to seeing this work through. So thank you all. Aye.
Udaley?
Well, thanks for the report. These are all admirable goals, and it sounds like progress was made, but I have to admit, from where I stand, I feel like we've barely scratched the surface, and I'm concerned about how we move forward with these efforts now that the funded portion of the initiative is over. The Gator sessions have been particularly enlightening to me, particularly about how important it is if we want to accelerate permitting process and housing development, that all our permitting bureaus are staffed up and all our permitting bureaus are collaborating with each other. And I think we've made inroads, but we're not there yet. And as far as the hiring timelines, I just want to point out that for some of these bureaus, we just simply can't compete with the private market in the midst of a housing boom. And the good news, bad news is we're near the end of that cycle, so maybe we won't need to staff up after all. I'm particularly frustrated with the city's website. It is not user-friendly. It's not particularly accessible. It feels really outdated. And I know that there's some kind of pilot project plan for a couple pieces of it, but I'm very interested in seeing a grand plan for the whole site. I mean, to be honest, I avoid sending people to our website as much as possible, in particular mine, because it's embarrassing to me. Coming from the private sector, working with very limited resources, I feel like what I was able to do in my previous career was often more advanced than what I'm able to do here with the limitations placed upon us. So I guess, yes, I just wanted to say those things out loud in front of everyone so you know that I'm really interested in this work, that I'm going to, be watching and pushing for our bureaus to continue, and that please count me in if there's a conversation about overhauling the website. I would love to participate in that. Aye.
Fritz.
Thank you for all your work. It has been a multi-bureau effort. I'm particularly proud that Portland Parks and Recreation helped start the Tableau user group back in 2015 under my direction. It has been helpful to us. And there's a lot of challenges in figuring out how bureaus work, how commissioners can work together, how the city as a whole can act as one. And the question, of course, is, works better for who? And Commissioner Fish pointed out for people who are aging, having the font size big enough is a fairly basic thing. And also, who else is unfairly impacted or disproportionately impacted, and how can we help those folks access the services that the city offers? So I appreciate all of the efforts that are going into this, and I look forward to continuing to participate. Aye.
Wheeler?
I'm very proud of this effort, and I'm proud of the work that has been undertaken, and I'm absolutely thrilled that we had a number of bureau leaders who embraced this work and saw the importance of it. In my mind, it has four primary improved outcomes. Number one, it improves efficiency. Number two, it improves our cost effectiveness. Number three, it significantly improves community engagement. And number four, it improves cross-bureau collaboration. These are all things that the public assumes we are doing anyway. But the reality is this work highlights that there are many instances where we have to work with intentionality and in partnership amongst bureaus and agreeing on systems collaborations and standardization of policies across bureaus, things that frankly don't come very easily under this form of government. So we have to be intentional about the structures that we put into place, and the role for the council here is to set a clear expectation that we don't silo expertise on the council commissioner to commissioner to commissioner, but instead imbue values into bureaus that we collectively agree on as strategic leaders in this community, and then make sure that each of the bureaus has all of the skill sets and the system sets and the standardization process in place for them to be able to do the work that we collectively ask them to do. It shouldn't matter at the end of the day whether I'm the utilities commissioner or Nick is the utilities commissioner. As a council, we should have a clear understanding where the utilities are going, have broad agreement on what they are doing, and have set up the system so that if Nick and I need to switch roles really quickly, we can do it, and it is not disruptive from the perspective of the client, the customer, the end user, the people that we represent. So I think this is fabulous work. I'm thrilled that Bloomberg and Harvard and other great partners saw Portland as a worthy place for this and were willing to invest collectively in our efforts. And I'm just glad that there was a leadership team here that rose to the occasion and saw the value. I think this is great work, and I agree it needs to be continued. I vote aye. The report's accepted. Thank you. Colleagues, I'm going to dice things up a bit. We're going to lose Commissioner Udaley. She's going to represent the council at an important community engagement in 17 minutes. So I would like us to, if possible, be a little more quick, particularly with the emergency ordinances. We have 4 before us today. I'm going to ask Commissioner Fritz, please, to lead us on item 596. Then I want to move the Police Bureau in line next, since they have to my count, 3 emergency ordinances. So as people give presentations, I'd like you to think about being as succinct as possible while still conveying the necessary information. Please read item 596.
Item 596, increase contract with FFA Architecture and Interiors, Inc. in amount of $107,500 for services for the Peninsula Park Community Center Pool Improvements Project, number P30128.
Commissioner Fritz.
Lauren, how desperately do we need to have this done this week? Because it's a shame to not tell the community about this project simply because we're about to lose a quorum.
We need it to be done.
This is another Fix Our Parks bond. Thank you to the voters for passing the bond. The pool at Peninsula Park Community Center is over 100 years old. Many parts have been replaced, but most of the pool still needs repair. This bond project will replace the gutters, eliminate hazards, fully seal the pool shell, replace all the pool mechanical equipment, and also provide Americans with Disabilities Act upgrades to make the pool more accessible to all users. Thank you to Asset Manager Lauren McGuire and her team for getting this done.
Hello, Mayor Wheeler and members of council. My name is Lauren McGuire, Asset and Development Division Manager for Portland Parks. Jill Hutchinson, the Capital Project Manager, is ill today, so she's unable to be here. We're here today to amend the price agreement with FFA Architecture and Interiors for additional compensation to perform professional, technical, and expert services during the permitting, bid, and construction phases of the Peninsula Park Center pool improvements for $107,500. The Peninsula Park Center Pool Improvement Project is a bond project funded by the Parks Replacement Bond, as Commissioner Fritz said, which passed with the support of 74% of the voters in 2014. This $68 million bond focuses on the repair and replacement of our most urgent needs in our park system. It includes repair and replacement of playgrounds, pools, restrooms, trails, bridges, recreation centers, maintenance facilities, accessibility improvements, and the resolution of other deficiencies throughout the system. This particular project falls into the pools theme, which aims to prevent emergency pool closures, to stop water leaks, and to improve energy efficiency, and we have $6.8 million committed to this particular category. Peninsula Pool is located in North Portland at the intersection of Rosa Parks Way and Albina Street. The pool has been a landmark of summertime fun for North Portlanders for over a century. The outdoor pool was built in 1912 and the community center in 1913. The pool was enclosed with the community center's courtyard walls, and the space in the basement became the pool mechanical system. So while the pool mechanical equipment has been upgraded over the years, the filtration and circulation system still rely on filters, valves, and piping installed in 1959. Pool water that enters the gutter goes into the combined wastewater system, and the pool walls and drainage system do not meet current state or federal code requirements because the walls are sloped in the wrong direction, and exposed piping within the pool is an entrapment hazard. The goal of the improvements project is to upgrade the pool and mechanical equipment while maintaining the character and historical significance of the community center. Once constructed, there'll be a new mechanical building on the pool deck to house the new pool equipment, resulting in a more hygienic and safe experience for pool users and a greatly improved energy efficiency. The pool shell will also be improved with new gutters to eliminate the current 1-foot gap from the pool deck to the water surface. Sloped pool walls with straight walls and exposed piping will be removed and new piping installed behind the pool walls. We'll also be shallowing the pool to provide greater accessibility and safety for users. The project will also address ADA deficiencies by regrading the pool deck, revamping the ramp to the pool entrance, and adding a chairlift at the edge of the pool. The total budget for the project is $4,090,000, with a combined fund from the bond, $3.2 million, and thank you, the SDC funds, $890,000. The SDC portion of the funds will be used to shallow the pool, the new lighting, and the new wheelchair lift. So FFA Architects and Interiors is under contract with Portland Parks and Recreation via an on-call price agreement with a not-to-exceed amount of $250,000. The total increase in the price agreement is due to design bid permit construction of the new shallowing of the pool, design bid permitting constructing a new mechanical building on the pool deck, and resolving permitting issues, and then a construction contingency. The first two items of the work increase the contract amount to $312,500, which was 25% more than the original budget. And now PP&R is requesting approval to increase the existing on-call price agreement to $420,000, which represents a 68% increase over the original contract amount. On the screen, you'll see that we've been very busy in the bond program with all these. We've finished Lentz Playground, Ventura, Maple Trail Bridge, Grant Pool, Matt Dishman, many others. And we're looking forward to the construction that you see on the screen. So our purpose today is to request that the council give the Chief Procurement Officer the authority to amend the price agreement with FFA Architecture and Interiors for an additional compensation to perform professional, technical, and expert services for the Peninsula Park Community Center pool for $107,500. That concludes the presentation, and we'll take any questions.
I had a couple. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Daly, did you have a question? I had a couple. Yeah, I'm sure you said it, and I just missed it. When, assuming we approve this, when would the construction actually start?
We're hoping to start, she's finishing up the drawings now. We're hoping to start this next year.
So, is there an anticipated rough completion date yet?
2019.
2019. Yeah. So in time to go swimming in 2019.
Right.
Fabulous. That's exciting. That's great news. Any further questions on this item? Very good. Public testimony?
Joe signed up, but I believe he left. He did leave.
Very good. All right, good. So this is an emergency ordinance. Anything else to share before we call the roll?
No.
Very good. Please call the roll.
Fish?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
There was recently a somewhat scathing article in the new St. John's Review about parks not investing in North Portland. And so we did a quick summary of all of the investments that have been made, both with the bond measure and system development charges. And over the 5 years that I have been the Parks Commissioner, it comes to over $23 million. Oh. And that compares with about $63 million in East Portland. So North Portland is also an area with a lot of low-income folks, a multicultural community, and I'm very happy that we're going to be able to invest and improve. This is the second pool that's over 100 years old that we've been able to do with the Fix Our Park bonds. The Grant Pool was done first. So I'm happy that North Portland is getting its turn, and thank you again both to Park staff and to the voters for approving the Fix Our Park bond measure. Aye.
Wheeler?
I'm enthusiastically supportive of this. I'm greatly appreciative of the fact, Commissioner, that we have been able to work out a strategy for actually funding it, living up to a commitment that was made to the public, and protecting and preserving what I think is just a fantastic community asset for at least another generation or two. So I enthusiastically vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Colleagues, next we're going to move item 600 into the queue, and it has just been brought to my attention that both of the items pulled off of the consent agenda are also emergency items, but I have talking points for both of those, so I think we can dispose of them quickly as well. So item 600, if you could read that, Carla.
Authorize an intergovernmental agreement with Multnomah County to continue to provide House Bill 3194 offender law enforcement supervision and support.
Colleagues, House Bill 3194 was passed by the Oregon legislature in order to invest in local evidence-based practices to reduce prison population growth and recidivism. State general fund dollars saved through diverted prison growth are distributed instead to participating counties. The Multnomah County Justice Reinvestment Program, sometimes called McJERP, is a partnership between Multnomah County, the City of Portland, Troutdale, Gresham, and Fairview, created to guide and implement House Bill 3194 programs in Multnomah County. In 2014, the City Council passed Ordinance 186770 to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Multnomah County. We provided one full-time Portland Police Bureau officer to McJERP with a compensation of $152,043.59 from the county. This expired at the end of fiscal year 2015. In 2016, the council passed Ordinance 187628 to extend the IGA until the end of the fiscal year 2017 with an annual compensation of $115,000. This ordinance is a request to extend the intergovernmental agreement to the end of the fiscal year 2019 and to set the county compensation request at $70,918 for fiscal year 2017-18 and $146,860 for fiscal year 2018-19 to cover the cost of the assigned Portland Police Bureau officer. We have gentlemen here from the Police Bureau to answer any questions that you may have related to this item. I don't even know what your voices sound like today. Any public testimony on this item?
No one signed up.
Please call the roll.
Fish?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
The multi-talented Christina Nieves worked on this project on House Bill 3194 when she was working for then Multnomah County Chair Marisa Madrigal. So this program is particularly important to folks in my office, and we greatly appreciate the partnership. This is so much better to use money that would otherwise go for incarceration to helping people recover their lives, and thank you for your work. Aye.
Wheeler?
Proven program. I support it. Glad you do too. Thank you. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Next item, 601.
Thank you.
Extend contract with VCA Antech Inc., doing business as Southeast Portland Animal Hospital to June 30, 2023, and increase by not to exceed amount to $175,000 for veterinary care of Police Bureau canines.
Colleagues, VCA Southeast Portland Animal Hospital is the only known veterinary clinic within the city of Portland providing routine veterinarian care. The Portland Police Bureau Canine Unit provides service coverage to the city on a 24/7, 365-day-a-year basis. By renewing the contract with VCA, canine handlers have access to the VCA Southeast Portland Animal Hospital, which is open 24 hours a day, which saves the city of Portland substantial money in overtime costs for vet visits, as handlers can drop in for a majority of their assigned canines' appointments or examinations during their work shift, no matter what time or day of the week. Renewing the contract with VCA allows the Police Bureau to access to a wide range of specialized veterinary services, if needed, that can be billed through the contract, as opposed to having to set up new contracts with other individual vet services, saving both time and money for the Bureau and fiscal services. Under contract with the VCA, vet services for the Police Bureau's canine teams are offered at a reduced rate, again saving money for the Bureau and the city. We have gentlemen here, including Sergeant Jason Preston, to address questions or concerns that you may have. Very good. I have a side note here that I would also like to just put on the record, because some might think of this later. Dove Lewis is open on a 24-hour basis, but they focus on emergency care and critical care needs, not the basic veterinarian services. So I just wanted to put that out there. We love Dove Lewis, and we just wanted to make that differentiation. Is there any public testimony on this item?
No one signed up.
Please call the roll.
Fish?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Well, quite apart from anything else, I think most of us like to keep our current medical providers, so I'm glad that the dogs are going to be getting continuity of care. Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. Item 602, please.
Extend contract with Cascadia Behavioral Health Care, Inc.
Thank you.
To June 30, 2019, and increase the not-to-exceed amount to $1,613,724 for mental health clinician services.
Colleagues, this contract continues the partnership between the Portland Police Bureau's Behavioral Health Unit and Cascadia Behavioral Health. Cascadia provides the clinicians that are part of each behavioral response team. The mission of the behavioral health response teams is to identify and connect individuals having frequent or high-risk contact with the police bureau due to a known or suspected mental illness to community-based mental health services. The BHRT, that's the Behavioral Health Response Team, consists of a uniformed police officer and a clinician. The professional clinician provides on-scene mental health assessment and evaluation and provides linkages to community resources. Much of the work involves bringing structure and coordination to the lives of individuals in crisis that previously had contact with the law enforcement system instead. BHRTs work with individuals referred to the Behavioral Health Unit. BHRTs work with individuals referred to the Behavioral Health Unit. BHRTs follow up when individuals are not in crisis to connect them to appropriate treatment and/or community resources. The goal of the intervention and linkage is to reduce the individual's contact with the police bureau and the criminal justice system. Goals include reducing risk factors, reducing frequency of police contact, and connecting individuals to appropriate community services. BHRTs have access to stabilization beds. Individuals referred to the BHRTs often experience periods of unstable housing. Providing a stable place to live can improve the connectivity to appropriate services. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Anything that was not in my talking points that should be added?
I have a question.
Commissioner Fritz.
This increases the contract by $525,000. Is that to pay for the current staff for next year?
It's for this is Bob Douglas, Police Fiscal Services. It is to pay for the existing level plus an additional 2 clinicians.
So 525.
Is your mic on? I'm sorry, is the light on?
It is on. I don't.
Okay, just slide it a little closer. Thank you.
So my understanding is that it would cover the 3 existing plus 2.
So that seems like not much money for 5 highly trained clinicians, 525,000.
It would not seem, but that is the agreed upon amount between Cascadia and the Police Bureau.
And Mayor, is that what we agreed to, or will agree to in the budget tomorrow, just an additional 2 behavioral health unit teams?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And this is in addition to Police Bureau personnel associated with the unit.
I can't help but reflect on the disparate compensation for the police part of the pair and the mental health part of the pair.
I am all for strengthening the mental health safety net in this city. All for it.
So this is a 1-year extension, as you look to renew it next year, I want to make sure that the clinicians, as they grow more skilled in partnering with the police, that those individuals are willing to continue on, and that the compensation, which I assume includes benefits, doesn't seem, seems like it may not be very generous or even adequate.
Good conversation to have with Central City. Is there any public testimony on this item?
No one signed up.
Very good. Please call the roll.
Fish?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Wheeler?
I think this is fantastic work. And as we heard during, I think, 8 hours of public budget testimony, people were very concerned as I know you are, about the interactions with people in our community, particularly those living on our streets, but not exclusively, but those who are living with mental health issues and their interactions with first responders and public safety individuals. And one of the most frequently requested items was more people who are actually clinicians having those interactions with people living on the streets. The reason the BHU is so successful is because it has that pair. Yes, it has the Police Bureau first responder who is often called to the scene, but then there is also a professional mental health clinician who can help with that engagement in the interaction, and as I indicated, also follow up with those individuals once the situation has been de-escalated. And I am very pleased that Chief Outlaw strongly supports this model and would like to see the model expanded. And I know that in the year ahead, she's going to be sharing some ideas and thoughts that she has about how we could even beyond this model, continue to improve our interactions with people living with mental health issues. So I enthusiastically vote aye, and I am very grateful for your work. Thank you very much, both of you, on this item. Next, I believe we can read items 603 and 604 together, but we should vote on them separately, but we can read them together.
I thought we were going to do the emergency
I'm sorry,
items
you're
from
right.
the consent agenda.
Commissioner Udaley is right. Let's hold off for just a moment and get to the consent agenda items that were pulled that are emergencies, because I want to get Commissioner Udaley's vote prior to her departure. Could you please call item 585?
Authorize application to the Department of Homeland Security Urban Areas Security Initiative Grant Program for a grant in the amount of $2,500,000 to enhance emergency preparedness through planning, training, and equipping of emergency responders in the Portland urban area.
Colleagues, the purpose of this legislation is to authorize application for the fiscal year 2018 Urban Areas Security Initiative, otherwise known as UASI, grant from the Department of Homeland Security through the Oregon Military Department Office of Emergency Management. This is important because the grant funds will be used to help strengthen the regions, and that includes the Port of Portland, TriMet, Multnomah, Clackamas, Washington, and Columbia counties in Oregon and Clark County in Washington, to increase their capabilities in preparing for, mitigating, and responding to wide-scale emergencies and disasters. Think earthquake. The Department of Homeland Security has designated the Portland metropolitan region as the core urban area in the state of Oregon. The Portland urban area encompasses Clackamas, Columbia, Multnomah, and Washington counties and Clark County. It's funny I said that twice. The City of Portland has applied for and received Department of Homeland Security UASI grant funds since 2003 and works through regional partners through the Regional Disaster Preparedness Organization, the RDPO, to coordinate, plan, and execute trainings and exercises and procure equipment to respond to and recover from natural disasters and potential acts of terrorism. There is no match requirement at the local level for this grant. The Portland Urban Areas UASI funds are strategically aimed at building and maintaining a wide range of all hazard capabilities and are distributed through a rigorous process that includes dozens of jurisdictions and disciplines in the areas of public safety, emergency management, public health, and public works. Anything I missed?
Good morning, and no, I couldn't have said it better myself. That was spot on.
And name for the record, just so everybody knows.
Mike Phillips, Portland Bureau of Emergency Management.
And Mike, I want to thank you and your colleagues. There was question as to whether the UASI grants would be forthcoming or not. And I want to thank you and your colleagues for their continued advocacy at the federal level to make sure that regions all around the country, including ours, continue to get the funding we need to be prepared for a wide-scale emergency.
Thank you.
Is there any public testimony on this item?
Mimi Gurman pulled this.
Come on up. 3 minutes, name for the record. And good morning.
Good morning. I know what the grant is supposed to be for. My concern taking money and continuing to take money from the Department of Homeland Security is one that affects me directly and affects all of my friends who are activists in Portland, affects the immigrant community in Portland and the migrant community in Portland, because What I see, especially since Occupy, is the ever-present Department of Homeland Security out on the streets along with our cops. And what I know directly is from them, which is they can do whatever they want. They don't have to show us a name. They don't have to tell us anything. They can arrest us. Nobody can know about it. They can take us to wherever they want. This is direct back and forth conversation that I've had with DHS people on the street. And again, I understand what this money is supposed to go for, but what I don't know is where is the transparency and the access that a person like myself and many other people in the community, including Alma from this morning, we were talking about this because it affects so many different communities. Where is the access and transparency for us to know that the money that you are receiving from Homeland Security is actually going to that? What I know, again, starting from Occupy, is that all of a sudden during Occupy across the U.S., but especially in Portland, is all of a sudden we had all new gear coming in for the riot cops, new vehicles coming in that were different from any that we had ever seen before. And it was, you know, the feds brought it in. Jeff Sessions was here. What did he actually say? You know, keep support, we'll let you have your so-called sanctuary city if you allow us to do what we do here without any pushback. I don't know. So I'm just saying that there is a great lack of transparency for somebody like myself and other people in the community to know where that money is going to. And maybe it's not so. Maybe the lack of transparency is only, you know, what I'm thinking, but it actually exists somewhere. I don't know what that trail is, but I know that asking to continue to receive money from a department that was created on the false premise that we were invaded by a foreign country in New York City and a few other places, that's where the Department of Homeland Security came from. Yet we acknowledge it as a real entity from which we can use, you know, as a bank. And I don't like the betting. I don't like them as a partner. And I'm saying that while I understand what the money is supposed to go for, I don't know that that's what the money is going to. And how much of that money is actually going to hurt me and my brothers and sisters on the street, whether it's in the black community, the houseless community, the migrant immigrant community, anything, the Muslim community.
Very good. I don't know if you have a response to that in terms of how the decisions are made about the distribution of the funds and the accountability.
I do, Mayor. First, the money comes from FEMA, which was an organization, an independent federal agency prior to the creation of Department of Homeland Security. In particular, the UASI grant was revised after 9/11. They provide 3 key points, federal requirements, in order for us to qualify, which falls under economic recovery, housing, and then cultural and community resilience. And based on that, the Regional Disaster Preparedness Organization has several justification criteria which matches the federal requirements. And within that organization, there are several committees that vet the projects submitted by the member counties. They're vetted and they're scored based on that criteria, and once the committee approves it, it is then submitted up with the application. So there are several levels of approval and review prior to the projects getting funded. Once the projects are funded, there is a federal, state, and local requirement to audit and monitor those projects. And in my experience since 2003, no project that's been submitted has ever not been funded by the federal government.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Fish, did you have a question? Very good. Please call the roll.
Fish?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Item 589, please.
Pay employment discrimination lawsuit of Chauncey King in the sum of $120,000 involving the Bureau of Human Resources.
So, colleagues, this ordinance will settle a lawsuit brought by an African-American woman formerly employed by the city who alleges that she was discriminated against because of her gender and race Risk Management, the City Attorney's Office, and the Bureau of Human Resources participated in a judicial settlement conference, and without agreeing that the allegations are true, they arrived at an agreement to settle the case rather than proceed to trial, and recommend that City Council approve the settlement. Council members have been briefed on the particulars of the case, but because the case is still pending until the settlement is approved, specific information about the settlement should not be publicly discussed. Sorry, that's it. Public testimony on this item?
Mr. Lightning pulled it, but I believe he left.
Very good. Please call the roll.
Fish?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz? Aye. Wheeler?
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Back to items 603 and 604. They can be read together, please.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Udaly. Have fun. Say hi to him for us.
603, accept a grant in the amount of $162,635 from the State of Oregon, Oregon Military Department, Office of Emergency Management for the fiscal year 2017 State Homeland Security Grant Program, Phase 7, to fund Joint Bomb Teams Equipment and Training. And 604, authorize an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Portland, City of Gresham, City of Vancouver, Clackamas County, Port of Portland, and Clark County, Washington, to maintain and equip a unit capable of an immediate response to situations involving explosives and explosive disposal.
So I just had one question. I assume that this is a play to, we're talking pejoratively here, we're talking about the bomb squad, right?
Yes, sir. Steve Collins.
Thank you, Sergeant Collins. And the goal here is to provide coordination with our regional partners. Is that the objective?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mayor.
Very good. And so the first part here is the grant from the state of Oregon and the Office of Emergency Management. And then the second ordinance here is the actual IGA that talks about the coordination between those regional partners.
That's correct.
Is there anything else that the council should know about this?
No, sir.
Other that it is very, very dangerous work, and I'm grateful, number one, that people are engaged in this, that we are very professional in our training and our expectations, and that we're collaborating with our regional partners and seeking joint funding to help that collaboration. I think it's really smart, and I'm greatly appreciative.
Thank you.
Any public, Commissioner Fritz?
I just wanted to say I saw a demonstration at the East Portland Community Centre. They put on a little display of the robot and such for the community a couple of years ago, and it was really very impressive. So thank you for your work.
Thank you very much.
Any public testimony on either of these items, Carla?
No one signed up for either of those.
Fine. Could you please call the roll on item 603, the ordinance?
They're both non-emergencies.
I'm sorry. Thank you for keeping an eye on that for me, Carla. I appreciate it. So item number 603 is the first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Item 604 is the first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It also moves to second reading. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we are back to item number 597. This is a second reading.
Rename streets west of the Willamette River and east of Southwest Nadeau Parkway, Southwest Viewpoint Terrace, and Tryon Creek State Natural Area from southwest to south, creating a 6-addressing sextant in the city of Portland and Multnomah County, and rename Southwest Aventine Circus, Southwest Equestrian Circus, Southwest Front Avenue, Southwest Northgate Court, and Southwest South Ridge Drive.
Very good. So as my colleagues know, second readings are ordinances where we have already had presentations and we have already taken testimony. Any further discussions on this item? Please call the roll.
Fish?
Aye.
Fritz?
So my understanding was that incorporated in this, you're going to be looking into a few of the additional items. I had a suggestion for the lady who lived at house number 7 that was very attached to that. In England, people often call their houses a name as well as the street address. So she could perhaps call her house 7 and then whatever the rest of the street address is. And that might take care of, might help the issue at least, because I think it is very important to be able to find address this very clearly. And as time goes by and more computer programs don't recognize the leading zero, it just doesn't make sense to continue doing workarounds around this. So thank you for your work on it. Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Next item, 598, also a second reading.
Rename Southeast Martin Court for consistency with Southeast Martin's Court and Southeast Martin Street, and rename Southwest Radcliffe Street for consistency with Southwest Radcliffe Court, Southwest Radcliffe Lane, and Southwest Radcliffe Road.
Any further discussion, colleagues? Please call the roll.
Fish.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
I just want to point out again, Andrew, the degree to which your efforts at customer service are greatly appreciated in the community. For me, the benchmark of that is when somebody steps up to one of these microphones and says, Andrew and I did not agree. We did not come to a resolution, but I felt heard, I felt respected, I felt fairly treated. That is a standard, and I think all employees in the city of Portland should be proud of your work and hold your work up as a high standard. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Next item is 599.
Authorize contract with CDM Smith, Inc. to provide engineering services for the Columbia Boulevard Wastewater Treatment Plant Headwork Screening Improvements Project, BES project number E10805, in the amount of $3,286,837.
Commissioner Fish.
Mayor and colleagues, this project will improve the first step in the treatment process of removing debris as wastewater enters the Columbia Boulevard Wastewater Treatment Plant. Ms. Chris Selker, project manager, and Mr. Paul Sudo, supervising engineer from the Bureau of Environmental Services, are here today with a brief presentation. Team?
Good morning. Paul Sudo, for the record, principal engineer with BES, and Chris will lead the presentation this morning.
Great. Morning.
Good morning, Mayor Wheeler and members of council. How does that sound?
Great.
I'm Chris Selker. I'm an engineer at the Bureau of Environmental Services and project manager for the Columbia Boulevard Wastewater Treatment Plant Headwork Screening Improvements Project.
You know, it's funny, when you said, how does that sound? I was thinking, you know, we prefer when you say that to be accompanied by a flourish. So we normally have a band that strikes hail to the council and other things, but it was fine. It was.
Well, I will say we do have a bird on it here, so.
You do?
There you go.
We are here today to request council approval of an ordinance to authorize a PTE contract with CDM Smith Incorporated for the project. The project location is the Columbia Boulevard Wastewater Treatment Plant in North Portland. The photo on the right shows the location of the Headworks building on the plant site. The Headworks is the first treatment unit the sewage passes through when it reaches the plant. The photo on the left is the Headworks building where the screens are located. Regarding the project background, the photo on the left shows the 5 bar screens in the Headworks building. Each screen is 7 feet wide and 40 feet tall. The photo on the right is a close-up view of a screen. Vertical bars in the screens catch debris like sticks and rags. Then a rake in front of the bars removes the debris from the bars.
What things do people throw in this toilet that they shouldn't be that then has to get screened out?
Baby wipes are sort of a game changer for the whole sewage treatment industry.
Thank you.
A little bit about, so then the debris is transported by a conveyor to a debris box and then taken to a landfill. The screens in the Headworks are old technology. They were installed in 1994, and in the 24 years since they were installed, technology has improved. Also, the screens were designed for different conditions than the ones they are operating in now. As I said, they were installed in 1994. Then in 2012, when the CSO program was completed, the amount of stormwater and debris reaching the river decreased, and as a result, the amount of stormwater and debris reaching the plant increased. The left-hand photo shows how the screens plug with heavy leaf and debris loads. In addition, the screens are not effective enough at removing debris. Items like those on the right get past the screens and plug downstream piping. Maintenance is, excuse me?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
Maintenance is difficult and expensive. The plant spends an average of $380,000 a year unplugging pipes downstream of the screens, just in the Headworks building itself.
So how long do the screens stay in place before they're cleaned?
You know, I think it's about
It's a few minutes.
yeah, a few minutes probably.
The debris builds
And
up.
then it's an automatic, like,
Yeah.
squeegee kind of thing?
It's a rake that scrapes it off of those.
And so what we're
screens.
looking at on the left, has the water level gone down, or has the screen been raised? How does that work?
That line there between where the plugging is and the clear bars was the water level.
Oh,
Yeah, so
okay.
the water level has gone down.
Okay, so you don't pull the screens up or anything like that?
No, the
They just
screens stay in place and they
I
get
see.
raked.
Okay, that makes sense. I got it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep. The project objectives are to replace the screens, conveyors, and screenings washer compactors, to modify downstream piping to reduce plugging and increase safe access, install flow meters, replace drain valves, replace gate operators, and modify odor control, electrical, and instrumentation for the new equipment. Today, we're here to request approval for the PTE design contract with CDM Smith, but briefly touching on future council actions. Based on what we know now, we will return to council in the future for an ordinance authorizing a CMGC alternative construction contract, and we will report to council for acceptance of a CMGC guaranteed maximum price. The planning level construction contract estimate is $10.4 million. Confidence in this estimate is low, which is normal for the planning phase. Confidence in the negotiated PTE contract of $3,286,837 is optimal. Regarding schedule, we plan to start pre-design this year. We plan on completing design in 2021, and we plan on a construction phase from 2021 through 2023.
And by the way, during the construction phase, colleagues will be asking people not to flush their toilets. So it's going to be an inconvenience for a period of time, but we want to get the new thing up and running.
Hey, I had a question on that. Not on Nick's comment, but every large metropolitan area has a headwater facility or whatever you referred to it. Is this a custom product, or is this something that's plug and play that's provided as a product to other municipalities?
It is, it's a little bit of both. There's different manufacturers that have optimized their equipment based on experience at different locations. But to get it to fit into like our facility versus another one, they have to engineer it to meet our dimensions, essentially.
So it would be a company that does this for other facilities, but they will engineer it to our specs?
That's correct.
I see. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
This table shows the overall estimated project budget, not just the PTE contract. The project budget will be refined as we move through pre-design and design. The total project cost is estimated to be $20,042,000. The table shows the cost broken down by project delivery phases. Most of the cost you'll see is in the construction phase. As I said before, we will be back again before council for approval of the construction contract. Regarding the PTE contract itself, CDM Smith was selected in accordance with city code. We had a minority evaluator on the selection committee. There were 3 proposals received. And the negotiated fee includes pre-design, design, bidding, and construction support. Regarding DMWESB.
Could you define this, please? Just say what that means.
Minority women, emerging small business.
Okay. And the D is?
Disadvantage.
Disadvantage. Thank you.
Sorry.
The PT contract has 2 DMWESB firms for a total of 34% of the contract.
What's a DRE?
That must be disabled. I don't know.
That's a new one for me.
Yeah.
We can get back to you on
Let's
that.
Google it.
Thank you.
In conclusion, our recommendation is authorization of the contract with CDM Smith for engineering services for the Hedberg Screening Improvements Project with a not-to-exceed limit of $3,286,837. Thank you, and we welcome questions.
That was a very interesting presentation.
Thank
you
you.
to both you and Commissioner Fish.
I'm glad we didn't hold off and do that as a lunch presentation. Very good. Is there any public testimony on this item?
No one signed up.
Very good. I thought that was a very informative presentation as well. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Great presentation. Next item, let's see, we got through all of those. We have second reading, item 605.
Mayor,
Should I just read the title first?
I'm sorry, Robert.
Vacate a portion of Southeast Grant Street west of Southeast Water Avenue, subject to certain conditions and reservations.
Mayor, that's a street vacation requiring 4 votes under the charter, so you could carry that over to this afternoon when you have 4 members of council.
Why don't we do that? And it's just a second reading, so why don't we plug that in right at the beginning of the agenda this afternoon at 2 p.m. Portland City Hall, 2 p.m., item 605 will be continued.
Good catch.
Item 606.
Create a local improvement district to construct street, sidewalk, stormwater, and sanitary sewer improvements in the Northeast 55th to 57th Avenues and Killingsworth Street Local Improvement District.
This is also a second reading. Please call the roll.
Fish.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. We're going to move item 608. Could you please read it?
Amend the business license law to increase the tax rate and increase the owner's compensation deduction.
So this item, colleagues, is going to be moved to the Thursday afternoon agenda. Is that correct, Mustafa? Very good. Thank you.
He's been sitting here all morning.
I didn't know it was moving. That's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
There's a miscommunication there somewhere. Last item, number 609.
Extend contract with Schneider Electric Systems USA, Inc. for the supervisory control and data acquisition system upgrade and increase compensation in the amount of $826,035.
Colleagues, this is also a second reading. Carla, please call the roll.
Fish.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. We're adjourned until 2 p.m.